All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this November 7th instruction work group meeting to order. It's my understanding that we have one public speaker online. That person's name and can go ahead.
Our online public speaker is Sean Callahan.
Oh, how you all doing?
Good.
Doing good.
That's great. So it's my first time doing this. Does my time start now?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know I was gonna be first. I wanted to speak with you all in concerns with the COVID restrictions that's in our school systems. I think that at this time that I think it's appropriate to relieve these restrictions due to the fact that our school systems are still understaffed. And even if parents wanted to volunteer to actually help schools with after school programs, you have to be fully vaccinated. And that being fully vaccinated, I feel like is something that should be optional and not required. I had a situation where I could have helped a teacher at my daughter's school with an after school program that quite a few kids signed up for, and every kid was not eligible to attend that after school program because there wasn't enough volunteers. And I couldn't volunteer because I'm not fully vaccinated. So I think that that's very heartbreaking to let kids down in that way. And my daughter is 9, so I think that it's very important for kids to have things to do, and we need volunteers, and we need to try to get back to normal with other cities of Wisconsin as well. Another thing that I want to talk about is our schooling systems. I would like to see different programs in our schools, especially in after school programs. We need programs that actually teach kids how to survive in this world that's growing so rapidly with technology. And even during in school, I think we need programs like technology programs. We need to teach our kids about saving money, how to invest, about credit and business credit, how to be entrepreneurs, how to invent, how to create. I think that these things are very important. I don't think that we are teaching our kids how to survive in this world, how to be efficient, and how to advance just the human race. It seems like they're just being taught just how to go to school, graduate, and then just work a job. So I think it's very important for us to maybe just change the programs, or at least to add certain after school programs that kids can go to for a couple of hours, even high school students. And I think that would be very beneficial for students to attend certain classes that they would be interested in learning, that can actually help them to be successful in the future.
Thank you very much, Sean. We appreciate hearing your voice.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
On to the next order of business, approving the minutes for October 3rd, 2022. I move to approve the minutes from the instruction work group meeting dated October 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Second, Board Member Muldrow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, so we kind of have a loaded agenda tonight. Just to start us off, that all of these items are updates and are related to significant investments that we've made in the budget, so they may inform future budget decisions down the line and have been marked as big areas of interest for the board. And then finally, will inform future decisions on policy as well. But first, let's start off with the health services update from Nurse Carrie.
Good evening, everyone. I will try to make this as brief as possible. Our COVID cases at MMSD are definitely continuing to decline. I will caution and just let people know that there are some other respiratory viruses that are definitely more prominent in our community right now, which includes our common cold. RSV is hitting kind of our youngest population and our oldest population the hardest. And we are just now starting to see influenza or flu in our community. So just a reminder to everyone that you can get a flu shot if you are interested in that. That's a good way to protect yourself from the flu, as well as the COVID boosters are available. We had a lot of success with our first ordering of our rapid antigen test kits, our home testing kits. We had ordered just under 4,000 kits about a month or two ago. We just placed a second order for an additional 4,000 home rapid antigen testing kits to send out to our families. We started distributing those at parent-teacher conferences last week at our elementary schools, and our plan is to continue to distribute those at parent-teacher conferences and any other special events that we have at our schools. So we're really excited about that. There's been wide uptake of families excited to take those home. We also, most exciting, that isn't on the board report, but last week we held 2 really successful vaccine clinics. And this was a big community partnership working. SSM Health is really the ones that organized it, but they got all 10 major insurance carriers in our community to sign on so that we can expand access to include COVID, flu, and Tdap. And so we held one clinic at Emerson Elementary during parent-teacher conference night, as well as this past Saturday at Memorial. And we administered over 520 vaccines at both of those clinics. They were full. We didn't have any open spots. And so I was at the Memorial Clinic and we sat down and started planning 2 additional clinics. We're hoping to hold one on the north side of town and one at a south side location, probably sometime between Thanksgiving and before our winter break. So we're really excited about that. And that's really all I have for updates for this month. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And as we go into questions for this meeting tonight, I'd like to do a 2-time round robin. Let's please try to hold our questions to 3 for both rounds. Otherwise, we will give us an update in the weekly update, or answer your questions in the weekly update. So to start us off, Board Member Vandermolen.
Yes. This may be a stupid question, but what exactly does Tdap stand for? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, that's a great question. So it is tetanus and acellular pertussis. So tetanus, diphtheria, and acellular pertussis. All of our students, it is a state mandated vaccine for immunizations. And so all of our 6th graders are due for Tdap. And so it was additional vaccine that we were hoping to offer, trying to expand our access for different immunizations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Board Member Simpkin.
I have a couple questions about the testing kits. What is the funding source for the testing kits?
That is through the DHS Testing in Schools program. So we order them and they are free to our community and to our school district. So we just place an order and then we distribute and then we're able to distribute them to our community.
And are we making those freely available to staff as well as families?
Yeah, any staff or students can get them. They've been kind of stored in our health office, but we've really been trying to push them out into the community at community events. But staff certainly can have access to those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, moving on, our next item, 5.1, an update on full day 4K. We have made significant investments over our past few budget cycles, was a large component in our referendum. And updating us on this will be Colleen and Carletra.
Could you share the screen? Go to the next slide. I'll just get us through the first few
Yeah.
slides. I'll turn it
Sounds
towards both of you. So this is our district vision tonight in the 4 presentations that you will see tonight. I hope you will notice that we are trying to live our vision every day through the investments we've made and the work we are doing. Next slide, Jesse. Again, and our core values, again, I think these will ring true as you see our presentations tonight from all of our staff that will be sharing some updates for you. Next slide, Jesse. As well as our strategic framework goals. All 4 of the topics tonight are work streams that we have in place and priorities that we have executed on in order to realize our 3 strategic framework goals. I'm just going to do a quick update. Savion did a great job, but we have 4 updates tonight. I decided to bold the word update because tonight is really about just information sharing and updates to the board and the community based on some of the investments that we have made to date. All of these updates I think are very important because we're about to go into our next budget cycle, even though I know we just approved the budget last week. And so as we are providing updates, we are thinking deeply about the implications that this will have for our future budget and also potential policy implications that may come out of some of the information that we are learning and reflecting on throughout our time. I'm super excited to be in community physically with all of you tonight and excited to provide these updates to our larger community. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Colleen and Carletra so that they can provide an update on where we are with full day 4K.
Good evening, everyone. I am Carletra Stanford, and it is my pleasure this evening to introduce Colleen Whithoon, who is the Director of Early Learning. And she is going to bring us some fabulous news about the progress that we have been making thus far with full day 4K. And tonight we're going to bring you the voices from our teachers as well as our parents. And again, just provide some updates on the direction in which we're moving. Colleen?
Next slide. So the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we showed you what full day 4K, what's going on in our full day 4K classrooms. And so this is a quick video clip of what's happening in our full day 4K classrooms at Leopold, along with some comments from teachers and families. So if you could play it.
I think the benefits for full day 4K is so important with the social emotional growth. The benefits outweigh a half day program. We are able to spend more time role playing, spend more time working at their level and what things they do know and things that they don't know. And we are able to meet more needs of the students in a full day program versus the half day.
I've noticed more growth in my students so that by the end of the school year, they've met more of their learning goals, their literacy and math goals. I've also noticed that their stamina and their ability to stay focused it increases as the year goes by.
Uno de los más grandes beneficios es el tiempo. Nos da la oportunidad de conocer más al estudiante, enfocarnos y encontrar las estrategias adecuadas individual y de grupo. Y también otra que siento que es fundamental es que la relación con los padres de familia es más cercana.
I prefer full day. Half a day, it was just a constant headache, like morning, afternoon, when it was going to be able to get time to get a job or who was going to be able to childcare. So with the full day, she has learned in a short time her letters, how to write her name. Just that has increased compared to when my middle child did 4K. It was in the morning, so all she really did was play. They didn't really have that much time, but full day, it's more. She's learning more.
Pues para mí el crecimiento que ha tenido ella es muy bueno. Ha aprendido mucho en que habla más, ya reconoce más las letras. Creo que es perfecto para ella todo lo que ha aprendido en la escuela.
My son Caleb he turned 5 at the end of September, and so he would have missed out on kindergarten if it weren't for the full day 4K. And it's really helped our family to be able to drop off both of my kids at once and pick them up at the same time. And he's really grown. He's already spelling his name, which he wasn't doing at the beginning of the semester. And so he's really grown, and he tells us great stories about being at 4K, and he loves it.
Some of my favorite work is spending time in the classroom. So you can go to the next slide. So this, oh, that's okay. There you go, right there. So this is my small but mighty department. So there are 6 of us together. We run all of the early learning programming for the district from birth to age 5. We cover approximately 85 4K classrooms, over 52 sites. 26 of them are in our school sites. 26 of them are community partners. We also oversee the Play and Learn program, which is a family education program where we offer high quality early education sites in the community for birth to age 3. 2 of my staff members are teacher leaders, so they help support the coaching of full day 4K. It was extremely difficult to add so many programs and not have enough coaching support. So this year we feel much better with the coaching support that we were able to add. Then we also have myself and a coordinator which help run the day-to-day operations, the budget, all of the community connections, and all of those relations. Our administrative assistant not only does all of the ordering for all of these programs, she also monitors daily attendance for our community sites because we need to ensure that our 26 ECE sites are also doing what the Department of Public Construction expects them to be doing as well. Next slide. So I just want to remind everyone why we are doing full day 4K. This was an equity strategy and one of our priority projects to really uplift that equity piece within our programming. Brain research really talks about the fact that the earlier we are, our brains mold and develop very quickly. And so they are able to learn quicker at a younger. So it's better for us to be doing early intervention and really putting our focus in there. Full day 4K programming offers additional time to focus on developmentally appropriate practice and building relationships between children and family. Teachers are really able to dig into content with the full day 4K program, which they were not able to do in the half day program. Relationship building is huge, and I've already talked about that. Next slide. So this is just an update of our programs. Last year, we had 16 sections in schools, and we This current school year, we have 28 sections, not only in our schools, we also have them in our community sites as well. We know that our community partners are extremely important to us, and it's important that they come along on this journey with us. A large portion of our population goes to Head Start, and Head Start are one of our community partners, and they have 6 locations. So we offer programs in English and Spanish. So who benefits from full day 4K? We really talk about full day 4K providing students that early learning access to full day and to full day programming, as well as we've had some research studies that have talked about the benefit for TEP students as well, that they are able to participate in full day 4K as well. We have approximately 530 students in full day 4K, which doubles the number that we had in the previous year. And about 66% of our students in our full day 4K program are students of color. Next slide. So again, just briefly touching on the student experience, what does the student gain in full day versus half day? They gain more. They gain more of the high quality environment for the whole day, not having to transition across multiple locations throughout the day. They build stronger relationships. They're really digging in deeper into the program. We have more culturally relevant emphasis as we're getting to know our families and incorporating those things within our programs. And students are really learning self-regulation as well. And self-regulation is one of those skills that is like the #1 thing they need to be prepared for kindergarten. Next slide. We offer inclusive programming for our special education students within our full day 4K program, just like we would in our half day programs. Remembering that in Madison, we offer inclusive programming for preschool students in their natural environment. So that might be considered the home, preschool, or daycare, depending on what the IEP determines is that natural environment. So just a few quotes. We're continually looking at this program, and the best thing about full day 4K is we have done an evaluation a lot as we're implementing. So we're learning continually what we're doing, what we need to change, what we need to do better. Reaching out to families, finding information from them and what they think about our full day 4K program is really important. I was super excited that the 130 of the 137 families that responded to the survey were satisfied or extremely satisfied in their full day 4K program. And then we also found out that 65% of those families also said that they would not be able to take part in a half day full day 4K program or half day 4K program. They need the full day option, or they'd have to have wraparound care of some sort, and they'd have to transition their child to multiple locations. Next slide. So as we're moving into full day 4K, it's important that we're also monitoring the teacher experience. And so we are making connections with early literacy and beyond. 93% of our 4K teachers are trained in EC letters. And we are working with our professional development collaboratively in order to create opportunities for teachers to put that practice in their classrooms. We are focusing on the pyramid model this year, which is a focus on social emotional development. It's about building relationships and being proactive with students and families in the early learning program. Teachers love to use the creative curriculum and Second Step, and they like that it's flexible, that they are able to choose multiple different studies and areas in which their children are interested. We know that staffing SEAs within our 4K programs, that continues to be a challenge, and we're continuing to work on that. We also know that full day 4K offers more time, or teachers have said that full day 4K offers more time and conditions that are conducive to being more responsive to children and families, but they also wanted you to realize that it's also about what's appropriate for that child or family as well. So it's appropriate, like for some, full day is a long day, and a half day program is something that they wanted. So it was important for them to let you know that. Next. So we've learned about a lot of this through our Madison Education Partnership. We've done over 25 different studies with the Madison Education Partnership, and where we've looked at research about transition and professional development, as well as the quality of learning. Remember, the research around full day 4K programming talks about not really seeing benefits in your academic scores necessarily, but that you're going to see those benefits in the long-term outcomes. And research really talks about the importance of that. So as we are moving our full day 4K into this, we want to be thinking about this. There is talk about the state moving to full day 4K. For the first time, I've really heard the people in the Department of Public Instruction talking about full day 4K. And so this is our way of blazing that trail in order so that we know what we need to be doing in order to be able to offer high quality programs. In our first year evaluation, we've learned a ton about the student and the teacher experience, because we've gone into classrooms, we've interviewed teachers. This next year, we're interviewing families, we're building those connections. So we're gonna follow students from 4K into 5K. And again, to not necessarily see that academic, but also to be able to see some of those other soft skills that are so important to the success of students as they move throughout their academic career. Next slide. And I just wanted to uplift that, again, the fact that our full day 4K program, we are full. We are full this year. We are more full than we have been in the last 3 years in 4K. Our percentage has gone up by 200 students. Our number count of students has gone up by 200 students this year. Now, whether that's due to full day 4K or whether that's due to moving out of COVID restrictions, it could be both. But others that are in the area are not necessarily having increases in enrollment. So I think that it's a good thing that people are looking at our programs as high quality programs. There is this additional demand. Schools want to become sites. Principals want their school sites. I mean, we hear it from teachers. I hear it from families. Everybody wants to know, when is my school going to offer this as a program? But we know that as we're monitoring the implementation of full day 4K, it's not about just adding full day 4K sites. There's also the idea that we need to make sure that those sites are functioning, that we have the necessary SEA allocation dedicated to them, that we're looking into uplifting the arts with the full day 4K program. Since we have this additional time, we are able to provide the arts education with full day 4K. And then we also want to make sure that we're expanding with our Head Starts, because our Head Starts are serving that population that we want to focus on our full day 4K programs on. So we want to make sure that we are uplifting our community sites with us along the way. Discussion?
All right, thank you. Start with some questions. Board Member Vandermolen.
Two things. One is a process question and one is a question for the people. On the process question, is the new round robin rule just for busy meetings or for all meetings? I didn't know if we needed to vote on that or if it's just
That
how that works.
is how this meeting is going to be facilitated. And that's just the decision of a facilitator.
Okay, I didn't know if we were doing a Robert's Rules check. That's all I wanted to know on that. And my second question is, well, actually, it's more of a comment. I want to thank you for teaching in the natural environment and working with Head Start on the 4K students. I think that is incredibly helpful. Do we have enough SEAs to be able to expand the 4K when we do expand it? And how can we increase the number?
So So I think with every expansion, there's always a staffing period where you're looking for staffing to staff those programs. You know, at the beginning of the year, we started out with the majority of our programs were fully staffed. We had a few that weren't staffed, but those were because of resignations or like it was intern. So they're in the process of hiring and getting someone additional. So I think as we would move forward, it would be appropriate that we would make decisions about allocation early. So that way we could post in order to have enough time to ensure that those positions are filled before the start of the school year. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, Board Member Nichols. Board Member Simpkin.
I'm gonna try to stay to 3. You can write down my extras if you need to. But I'll start with a comment. So I think that I'm excited that there's huge community uptake in 4K. And I just want to make sure that our district stays very aware of the implications. And I know that you are, but I have to say this out loud for the sake of my early childhood community. There's huge implications of taking students out of community childcare programs and moving them into the district. And what could happen is our childcare system could crumble because those 4-year-olds are usually the only age group that pays for the cost of childcare for infants through 4-year-olds. And so I just want to say that, and I will say that as many times as we need to, that there's huge community implications to how we grow 4K. And so we need to do that really carefully and with lots of community collaboration. I agree. Yeah. So that being said, I want to dig into a few other pieces. I am interested in your classrooms that are Spanish speaking. And I'm wondering, are they bilingual or fully Spanish speaking? And how many parents applied to get into those classrooms that were not able to? Because I know that some did. So what was the interest in those classrooms? And is there going to be an effort to increase the number of Spanish or bilingual classrooms?
So we do still have spaces available within our bilingual classrooms. So there are still spaces available. Some years are different than others. Some years we are full and jammed to the point where we have no capacity, and then other years we have some capacity. So this year we have a few spaces at all of our bilingual sites that if families are interested, they're able to attend. It is for Spanish-speaking families. That is the criteria for getting into that bilingual classroom. It is not a program where it's dual language where anyone can learn it. It is taught in Spanish. So it is for Spanish speaking families. It is more of a
criteria.
A DBE.
Yeah.
A DBE class. I don't know what DBE is.
Developmental bilingual education.
There we go.
So knowing that we've got these little very malleable brains and synapses are flying around, and this is the time to catch children with another language, is there any thought around intentionally adding spaces for families of English that are English speaking into those classes?
Right now, we have not had that, but it's been difficult to provide the programming explicitly for our Spanish-speaking families who require that program. So right now, it's not an option for us to be able to do that, and it's extremely difficult to find staff that is both certified in bilingual education as well as early learning education. Right now, there hasn't been discussions about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to have discussions about that as well, but we haven't been able to offer that.
Okay, yeah, if we can get to that point where we have enough staff, I think that would be something really powerful to be able to talk about. My next question, I guess I'll preface this also with a comment. So you talked a lot about developmentally appropriate practice and social and emotional development at this age, which is developmentally appropriate practice. And then in that video, I heard one comment from a teacher talking about learning goals in math and literacy. So then that piqued my attention because of course we don't want 4K to replicate or take over anything that is in kindergarten. It's supposed to be foundational. So what are you looking at as far as learning goals in math and literacy in 4K?
So we follow the Wisconsin Model of Early Learning Standards, and there are mathematics and literacy standards across the board from birth to 5. Using those Wisconsin Model of Early Learning Standards as a guide. We also have Teaching Strategies Gold, which offers us birth to third grade rubric, so that teachers can know exactly where students are in 5 different domain areas. It's not like we really focus more on the literacy, math, the social emotional development, and we enter data into the system for those, but we teach all of them. Our program looks at the whole child, and we want to make sure we're incorporating the whole child in our program. So we do music and movement, and we do, gross motor skills. So fine motor skills, we're doing all of those different developmental areas. So, but they do have objectives that are specifically for literacy and math, and the teachers can gauge where students are. It is a range. It's not a cutoff. It's not a benchmark. So it doesn't look like the assessments that you have at the older grades, but it does give a developmental range for them.
Okay, and WEMOS is really your.
Yeah. And that's my area. And so we make sure that those are together.
Okay, perfect. Last question.
Okay.
Pyramid model. So I was reading in the update from last week that are looking at implementing infant toddler pyramid model. And I believe you had talked about using pyramid model in this age group. So what I'm wondering is there going to be any connection between that and our kindergartners?
Eventually, yes. This year, we're beginning our pyramid model training with our 4K staff. We actually have community collaboration with the City of Madison Accreditation, and we are talking about community of practice implementation of pyramid model, which would include the infant toddler. It brings in my early learning liaison, which helps supports infant toddler programming and families and connections to build between the districts. So that will all be part of it as we lift it through. Once our 4K teachers learn it, it's not something that's learned overnight. It's a practice that you are continually perfecting, and we're monitoring the implementation of it. Then we move to we'll move to the next level where we'll be passing that information up to the kindergarten teachers as well.
That's fantastic. I like that you're including community practice because that's really necessary. Okay.
Yeah.
Board Member Pearson.
I'll just keep my comment very brief. I'm just really excited about the expansion of 4K. That's one of the things that we've been trying to get for a very long time, but even more so about the fact that there is hopefully some movement in ensuring that 4K is all day. And although I understand some of the concerns as a parent who had to do both, and run around as a single parent and doing, back and forth from daycare, Montessori to 4K. The access part is crucial for a lot of families, whether it's daycare or 4K. So I'm really excited to hopefully have our little ones be full students at the state level. So, and that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Yeah, so when we first started Full K, and I'm sorry, I'm saving.
You good?
I jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the data points that really stood out to me, this is years ago, was that every single child we suspended from 4K was an African-American boy. So I want to ask first about disciplinary data, how we're keeping track of who gets in trouble, what they get in trouble for, and what that looks like at 4K.
So right now, we follow the same disciplinary process that K through 5 does. But at 4K, they don't often get to that level where they are being suspended and
There's a
Going
moratorium
above and
on suspension right now.
Right,
So, like,
exactly, but you know what I'm saying, like.
You know that is not happening.
Right.
I'm asking what is.
Yeah, and so part of that is pyramid model is the training that we're bringing in to uplift that piece as well, because it is about relationship building and understanding the biases that we have, and also understanding that that children come differently with different needs, and we need to accommodate them, whether it's as a whole group, or it's a small group, or it's an individual. We need to decide what supports those are. We have some great community support through Roots and Wings, and American Family have helped to provide visual supports for our young programs. But you're right, there is this disproportionality that we are continually looking at. And it is in 4K as well. So we're focusing in on that and trying to be proactive about that using the pyramid model.
Thank you. Can you tell me the total number of students who are currently enrolled in 4K?
1,463.
That's full day in.
That's full day and half day.
Half day?
Yep, there's 530.
530 full day. So we have a little bit more in our half day or 2-hour program. We do our full day program.
Well, 36% is full day right now.
How many students, if we were to offer universal 4K, and I want to acknowledge what you said about the impact it has on childcare providers. I think the other thing to think about is the impact it has on parents. As somebody who is sending a 1-year-old to daycare, I'm like, it's a really, really expensive thing. And if you have multiple kids, alleviating that cost means a lot to families. And so were we to offer universal 4K, 1, how many students would that mean? And 2, how much would that cost the district? We offered full day 4K at every single elementary school, similarly to how we offer full day kindergarten.
So it'd be extremely important that we have community partner sites as well, because we would not have the space in order to double our 4K classroom sizes in order to have full day 4K program in just our elementary schools. But there's another reason for that, because oftentimes families are very connected to their community partner site as well. And so it's really important that we have this community approach where we're working with our community partners. It's not about if a family has an infant toddler in a program, wouldn't it be great if they could drop their 4-year-old off at that same place, but have that paid for through full day 4K and not have to pay that, but we only have to stop at one place. Right. So it's really great for us to make sure that we're collaborating with our community partners in order to implement full day universal 4K across the district. But I do want to say, we do understand full day 4K is great, but it may not be for everyone. We have families that are very vocal about only wanting a half day program. And so the choice or the opportunity, especially for a grade level that is not compulsory, families do not have to send their children to 4K. It's an optional program that we want them to attend because we know all the great things that they get from it. It's really important that we're flexible with that program and that we offer what families are looking for.
So that would be true for kindergarten too. Kindergarten is not a compulsory or mandatory grade. However, the vast majority of families opt into it because of the cost savings and convenience of going to your neighborhood school for kindergarten. Would we at any point be aiming to have full day 4K at all 32 elementary schools?
I could respond to that. First of all, I'm just very excited to be having a full day 4K discussion, as I've been involved with this for the last 29 years, working even internationally with the University of Durham, Shanghai, and we talk around the world. Not everybody believes that we should start so early. It's developmentally appropriate for the child and the family. What's the difference? I think from all angles, in particular, now that we have some little excitement from the state, which is just outstanding. And I think following the lead of some other states that have to invest in full day, literature behind it really supports it. if it's appropriate for that family and that child. But what a benefit to our community in terms of just catching students early on with those relationships. When you start talking about the social emotional piece, it's talking about our parents who find it challenging with sometimes having the half-day programs, but then our families who just need that little break and continue that nurturing between the parents and the child. And so I think in my estimation and what I've always pushed for is full day 4K. I'm kind of a little wild with it, wanting it for everyone. I want it to be a choice, just because we know it's not a compulsory thing, right? But we have seen tremendous positives. But I will say over and over, it must be appropriate for that child, because this is a family's decision. To offer that as a district would be just incredible. And you move into not only just for our staff benefits, there are some benefits there. And I won't speak for all staff, but I know some staff will find this very beneficial for them. And it's I hope everybody don't get out of just trying to get to learning. Like when you start mentioning numeracy, literacy, that's not just the main thing about this, everybody. Let's make sure that it really does give our younger ones some developmental skills that will help them as they continue to progress developmentally. That's what I would say. So our goal, in short, again, loud, yes, I would love to see that, only though when it's appropriate for the family and child.
Yeah, so I think that would be really similar to what we did in 1993, which is we had half-day kindergarten for decades and we moved towards full-day kindergarten. We saw it at every single place where we had kindergarten or elementary school, we saw kindergarten. So we could see that for all of our elementary schools, although I'm hearing from you, that would be in collaboration with our partners. I'm hearing from you that there's a need to make sure that parents are opting into that because it's what's best for their kid. My last question is, what is our class size at 4K? So what's the largest a class can be? What's the smallest?
So the largest class is 1, and that's set by the child licensing has 20 per adult in the classroom. So we have a teacher, 20 to 2. So we have a
10 to 1.
teacher. Yeah, 10 to 1. Yeah.
Adults.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 10 to 1.
I was like, that is a lot of.
That is very difficult. And this year, because we're so full, we had over 200 additional students this year. We had almost 400 students that enrolled in August alone. And so our programs they're jammed, and we have tried to accommodate all families that we possibly can. And so our programs are full. We have gotten the majority of our programs back down to 18. We try to stick, our optimal number is 18. So we try to keep our programs at 18. And so, we try to make sure that, it depends on it also depends on the needs and the makeup of children too. Because as some classes have higher needs, they might only have 16 kids, and I may put a cap on them because of the excessive needs that are in the classroom, and they need more support. So it kind of depends, but our optimal number is 18. Our max number is 20.
Okay. The only thing I want to add in terms of follow-up around classroom size for our 4K students is, are there schools in the district that either have much higher enrollment in full day 4K or have more classes that are hitting that 20 threshold? So we don't have full day 4K at all of our schools. At the schools where we do have those 28 sections, are there schools that have much larger populations of 4K kids than others?
It's pretty even all throughout. So you can't look at 4K as this school and this school and this school. We look at it as a whole system of overflow, right? And plus our community partners are within there as well. So that is always another option, especially if families need that half-day wraparound care. So our half-day programs are full. We have half-day programs full. We have overflows that are full that we've had to it overflows for the overflow. We have full day programs full. We have some classes that aren't as full because that's an area just like this year. We didn't have a lot of 4-year-olds in that area, but last year we were full in it. So we try to estimate the best that we can, and we try to make sure that we have an adequate number of allocations, and then we do overflow in order to make sure that, all of our classes have, spread out, like kids are spread out throughout the district.
Thank you so much. That's it for my questions.
Thank you. Board Member Nichols?
Thank you. My questions are more connected to professional development. I'm wondering, do the 4K staff participate in school-based staff PD days? And if so, because I see you head nodding yes, are they participating in like their own kind of like 4K staff PD or are they included in what the rest of the elementary school is doing? And then you just talk about that a little bit. And could you say a little bit more about what has been included in the early childhood version of the letters training? What does that look like for 4K teachers? And what are the implications for the Spanish speaking staff?
Right, okay, perfect. So professional development, our district professional development calendar has district directed professional development days and school-based professional development days. So on school-based days, the 4K teachers will go with their school sites for professional development. On district directed days, they will come with me and we will, sometimes they're with me through a reflection period, but they're also watching their modules about pyramid model at this point in time. So we want to make sure that we're giving them time to be able to watch and learn about the pyramid model. And then we come together as a group to talk and discuss what we learned about. EC letters is really the same letters that the other elementary folks are learning, because actually I started in the elementary version of letters and then I did the EC version of letters. But the EC letters just focuses on material from birth to 5. That's it. So anything after birth to 5, that goes to the elementary version. Okay, so EC letters is really geared more developmentally towards birth to 5.
So as a follow-up, I mean, is it as intense in terms of hours of time to get through the EC letters? And then if you could just talk about the Spanish speaking 4K staff.
So the Spanish speaking 4K staff needed some support because they didn't have a Spanish version of the EC letters module. So my teacher leader is Spanish speaking, so she helped to support the bilingual teachers through that process. But the actual things that they're learning is really about play-based learning. So it's not any different whether you're teaching an English student or whether you're teaching a Spanish speaking student. So it does not go into the depth that what elementary letters does. The total course takes about 32 hours to complete the total EC letters manual with all the modules and the reflection. So it's pretty doable in a year.
So they can cover that in a year.
Yeah, we completed it, for the most part, we all completed it last year. So I have a new group of teachers. We decided to start our new group of teachers with EC letters. I decided to start them in January versus August, just because teachers have so much to do in August. And so this kind of gets them going, gets it under their belt. They're talking with their partners about EC letters and what they're learning. And then come January, they'll begin to do the modules in EC letters, and they'll actually be done with their pyramid model by that time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Board Member Simkin?
Okay, thank you. Just to piggyback off of the question about EC letters, is that implemented in a play-based fashion?
And EC Letters talks all about developmentally appropriate practice and play-based learning, and that the literacy should be brought up through natural routines. And they talk a lot about the 3-step repeated reading process of reading a story multiple times for multiple reasons, really uplifting vocabulary and talking about the importance of vocabulary and building those vocabulary levels. And so it's really not anything different than developmentally appropriate practice as you're reading along with it. So
I am so appreciating every answer you've given so far. Thank you. Right. My last question is around enrollment in 4K. If we have a situation in which we have more families interested than we have spaces, is the district planning to prioritize certain populations within for enrollment, or is it going to be first come, first serve?
as of right now, it's first come, first serve. So we can't stipulate based off of rates or any other thing how we enroll students. So we offer it as much as we can. We offer it to everyone universally for enrollment.
I was actually wondering about income level, and I think homeless students often fall into a different category altogether.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to kind of expand upon Colleen's response to say, just in terms of where we even determined to have full day 4K sites, we looked at areas that were kind of childcare deserts. We looked at areas that had our concentration of lowest income families, of where we had largest concentration of students of color, et cetera, to make decisions about where to even start to offer full day 4K. And as we think about expansion, I think we will continue to do that because the demand is there. So while an individual, we're not able to make the decisions in that way, we are making decisions about where is the most appropriate place to create sites where we have space based on largest need.
And just to respond to that as well, I think in the presentation, you probably saw it. I think we have to be very unapologetic. This is an equity strategy.
Yes.
And so in our equity strategy, when you mentioned earlier about working with partners have to understand that too. We're not into vendorship, we're into partnerships. It's going to be what's best for our students overall in our community. And I think we get to a space as we continue to work with our partner that we're going to have a lot of the professional development, but we could even partner on that to ensure that all of our scholars and our community are getting the necessary things in that whole early childhood space. Having been a part of doing that before, it was beautiful because we did run out of space in the district, but yet we were working with our partners so close, it was perfectly fine to say, hey, we have space over here, would you want to go there? People found that fine. So I'm really excited about this and the partnership piece.
That's really nice. Are you looking at childcare deserts? Where are you getting that information from? Is that from the city of Madison?
Yeah, we looked at Youngstar initially, and so we chose some sites on the north side, and then some sites around Leopold, because there weren't as many as many childcare locations available around those sites. That's why we initially chose those sites. But the sites that we chose had the highest. They were community schools because full day 4K really falls in line with the community school process. There's schools that had high populations of students of color. They also had high populations of students from low socioeconomic. And so we made sure that those were the areas that we wanted to target. Through our MEP evaluation, it shows that that is the population that we have the majority of, so that we are reaching that equity strategy. But when we offer it, we have to offer it to everyone who lives in that location. And so that's what I meant when I said that. So we have to, if it is offered at that site, it has to be offered to everyone at that site. So again, we can kind of target certain areas, but when we offer it, it has to be universally offered.
Yeah, thank you.
Board Member Vanderbilt followed by Board Member Nichols.
Ali's disciplinary question sparked an interest in me. Have we had a large number of special ed referrals or disciplinary referrals regarding special education students in 4K this year?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of at this time. I think, you know, in 4K, we have challenges, especially at the beginning of the year. We have lots of students who are coming in without any exposure or any experiences. But those children aren't necessarily identified as special education. They may be down the road, they may not be down the road. It's really up to us to make sure that we are providing that, those universal supports and structure for students. I can tell you that, this year coming out of COVID, it has been a challenging year for students with challenging behaviors across the district in our 4K program. So we're working hard to support them, and we're working hard in order to, meet those needs of those students. But I don't think that necessarily identifying them as special ed at the 4K level would be appropriate.
I'll just tell you, overwhelmingly, not even with pandemic, it's childhood separation that we're talking about. Developmentally appropriate. And sometimes this is where we weigh in and start over-identifying children, particular children you haven't seen, particular African-American males at this point. Physiologically, how they begin to develop in some individuals. Let's look at who are our teachers. That's across the nation. That's just not isolated to us in terms of the makeup. And understanding the psychology behind it, the relationship piece that we talk about need to happen here. This is where we need to understand separation of a child from their family, and this is why the debate in the country about, we're starting too soon. Okay, and so I want us to really pay attention to that, all of us, in terms of how we're starting at nurturing that relationship from its infancy and how we're calling it something or not.
Thank you. Board Member Nichols.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, I did not say how thrilled I am. Full day 4K. I want to just get that in the room. Always happy, thrilled to see us move to full day 4K. One of the things I was thinking about, and there may be no connection, but I'm just curious. We made a significant investment in K-5 curriculum, and not sure if those same companies also have high quality bilingual materials that are appropriate for 4K students. So I was just wondering if you could just talk a little bit about, even though the majority of the focus is on play-based learning, when I see a beautiful child in the slide with a colorful book, can you talk about where you all are selecting the materials that you are putting in front of children, and what is the eye towards those materials being culturally relevant, representative materials for all students, and then in particular our Spanish-speaking children?
So our curriculum is in both English and Spanish, and they are completely in Spanish, so they're not just translated versions. So we do have English and then Spanish curriculum. Our curriculum is really around play-based. It's around a standards-based way of providing learning, and it should be meeting the needs of the individual student wherever they're at from birth to third grade with the objectives for teaching and learning. There are Spanish objectives that they can turn on for English language learners if they would like to monitor that specific piece more closely for English language learners. Creative curriculum is one of the most popular preschool curriculums around. There are other You can get a basal curriculum. And you can tell teachers to be on a specific page on a specific day. But that's not typically a play-based environment then. Play-based environment is really about uplifting individual child choice, but meeting the needs of those individual child and being explicit. So our community partners, AmFam and Roots and Wings, many of you have seen the consent memos for the donations that we've been partnering with. They have helped us purchase explicit literacy materials. We've had other donations from the Madison Reading Project that have been explicit around culturally relevant materials. For them as well. AmFam has also paid for professional learning for our 3-step repeated reading process where teachers were able to choose their own books and we purchased them for them. So it was just, but we've had some great opportunities. And when our teachers bring things to us as a department, then that's my job, right? That's my job to make it happen for them. And so do I need to get funding? Do I need to get a partnership? Do I need to research something? That's my job then in order to make sure that's happening. We're finding, it's also part of our Madison Education Partnership evaluation is they're looking at culturally relevant pedagogy within the classrooms and they're counting that. They're talking about the appropriateness of the materials and they're viewing all those materials. So then that way we know what classrooms and what areas do we need to focus more materials and where do we need to uplift those ideas. So, and actually we took the information from the evaluation and at Welcome Back, we talked about the importance of small group instruction, right? And it's important that we are being explicit with specific students and some students need more instruction explicitly than others.
Our last curriculum related question, although it's not really curriculum related, but I'm sneaking it in on this chair. The last one. So thank you for the overview today. Are the 4K programs included in an elementary school's school improvement plan?
Yes.
Okay, and what kind of goals are they outlining in a school improvement plan?
Typically right now it's PALS. It's their literacy, it's the state mandated literacy screener. It's also a screener that is the only assessment that we have throughout all of our community sites and our school sites. So right now we focus on PALS. We did not switch to Bridges because PALS really gave us more of a specific, like what letters do you know? What sounds do you know? And so that the teacher could really learn and go through that with them.
Great, thank you.
My only question is our work with the MEP, are we conducting longitudinal studies for first place or full day 4K cohorts?
We're hoping so, yeah. So this next year, with the funding from teaching and learning, we are focusing on going into kindergarten. So yes, so we want to make sure that we're continuing to follow this cohort of students so that we can see for ourselves what has happened for the years as they're moving through their educational trajectory.
Got it. That will be great to track. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 6.1, an update on our. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An update on our progress on options to graduation. Presenting with us will be Cindy, Nuri, Allison, Tina, and Nancy.
Thank you. So moving from talking about investing in our earliest learners, which is really exciting, we now want to talk about investing in our oldest scholars and some updates for you here. 2 of our members are virtual, just so you know that. So Tina Geyer and Allison Eistedt are virtual, and then Dr. Fenter is supposed to join us as well. Just, is she online? Oh, she is. Okay, I thought she was coming in person. Perfect. So I am going to.
I'm upstairs, so I'll just walk downstairs. I think that would be, I'm up in my office, so I'll be right there.
The first part is but first of all, I don't know if everyone has formally met Nuri Crawford. She's our new executive director of the Office of Youth Re-Engagement. And I think this is the first time she's formally been in front of the board. Yep, so super excited. So I am going to, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Nuri and her team. And Jesse, if you could share the slides.
Yeah, hey, so thank you, board chair and the board for having me and allowing me to share a little bit about the amazing work that's been here before I even got here of the Office of Youth Re-Engagement. And Jesse, so yeah, over there just clicking away.
We're trying to make it bigger, but
It's okay. You can click again. So just a basic, the Office of Youth Re-Engagement includes the innovative and alternative education and our metro sites. You can click again. This is the amazing team that literally runs. I'm just blessed to have them and to be able to support them in any way possible so that we can get the work done for our oldest scholars. We went from the babies to the bigger babies now. So this is a team, and Allison and Tina are both joining us today, and you'll get to hear a little bit from them as well. So innovative and alternative education. Allison is our program coordinator, and she's going to share a little bit about the innovative and alternative education that we support and through the Office of Youth Re-Engagement.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm happy to be with you all this evening. So yeah, thank you, Nuri, for the introduction. I just want to go over the different programs that we offer to our scholars at the high school level. The first one is our high school equivalency diploma, otherwise known as HSED. We do have two sites, both are partnerships, with a mega school, and then we also have a partnership with Madison College. So typically a student goes through and does the GED exams in order to get their high school equivalency diploma. The second option is the General Education Development Option 2, otherwise known as GEDO 2 for a shorter, more concise version. So this is where students are combining GED exams with their high school credits in order to obtain a high school diploma. So that's an MMSD diploma option versus the HSED option, which is coming from the partnership. So Operation Fresh Start, OFS, our legacy program, that is a program that uses a combination of real world experiences through construction and conservation paired with the in-school learning that happens in order to earn a MMSD diploma as well. We have two micro schools that we service. One is Transition Academy, which services 11th and 12th grade students at East High School. And then we also have Blue Lion High, which services 10th and 11th grade students out of West High School. I won't talk too much about our metro sites because my colleague Tina Geyer will talk about those, but we do have 4 metro sites, 2 adult sites, and then 2 juvenile sites. We are working vigorously to get night school up and running and going. We took a minute to reflect off of some feedback. We are hoping to revise our night school model so that we are offering it to many more students starting very soon. And then our last program that I'll just touch base on is our Gateway to College, which is again a partnership with Madison College. Students receive dual credit there. It's a really awesome option for students that are a little bit behind on credit, but are interested in pursuing Madison College further on after for post-secondary. So those are the options that we provide. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Here's a little bit about our enrollment. Right now, we are servicing 116 scholars. I do want to mention that we do have rolling enrollment for typically on quarter and a semester basis in many of these. So these numbers do fluctuate throughout the year. I won't go through every single number here, but just for your reference, we do have this available. And if you want to go to the next slide, please. And this breaks it down for our demographics. We have broken down between male and female. We also have it broken down by race. You can see how many students we are servicing that are receiving special education services, as well as our English language learners as well. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Tina Geyer, to talk more about our metro sites.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. As you can see here, Metro is made up of 4 different locations, and each is distinct both in where it is located and in the programming options offered. We have 2 juvenile sites, shelter and detention, shelter being in a non-secure setting, detention in a secure juvenile setting. Both focus heavily on academic learning through a social emotional lens. There are a number of partnerships that we work with from the community, including the Library Bubbler program, Each One Teach One, and their Lyrics and Leaders program, as well as the I Am We Global Village, which is funded in part through the SEL in Action grant that was co-written with myself and the Global Village team. Beyond that, we have our adult programming sites. We have 2 classrooms, one in each building of the Dane County Jail, over on 7th floor of the City County Building, 4th floor of the Public Safety Building. Our focus with our students here is on developing personalized student-centered graduation pathways, be it through credit recovery, GED option 2, or IEP-based graduation portfolios. And I think we do it well. The 2021-22 school year saw 15 graduates, including the summer, from our Metro High site. First quarter of this year, we have already had 2 students graduate, one of whom we celebrated today. At all of the sites, relationships and community building is at the very core of everything that we do. A great example is our Metro Mascot Project, which started a little over a year ago with a pencil sketch and a conversation, and has grown into 4 really substantial murals, one at each of our locations, T-shirts, lanyards, and folders that are in print right now. And we're moving into students who are creating our very own graduation gear, which I think we're going to have our first cap and gown made out of fully recycled leather coming up in the near future, also in partnership with the Library Bubbler program. Next slide, please. And so our demographic data here for our Metro sites. As you can see, you can see we're broken down through by juvenile and adult programming. Enrollment at Metro means something a little different. It actually changes every day. Our students come from within the Madison Metropolitan School District, as well as from districts, state, and nationwide. And we're all working together. Students brought into custody in Dane County become MMSD students. It makes collaboration with our home schools all the more important. I know our juvenile sites work very closely, as do our adult, with home high schools to support students in completing coursework and credits there, as well as developing programming of our own. In Q1 of this year, our juvenile sites had 12 enrollments that came from out of district, several of them from northern Wisconsin, which was a change from years past. Our adult sites had 2 enrollments from out of state, both of them from Illinois. And I think it should be noted that we had 5 students come directly to the adult jail from Lincoln Hills School. We have a significant number of students receiving special education services, which is why most of our sites are staffed with special education and alternative education teaching staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison and Tina. You both are amazing. So just a little snippet about some of the successes we've had in our Office of Youth Reengagement. We were able to secure the funding for a bilingual resource teacher, a bilingual resource specialist. As Tina mentioned, 15 graduations out of our Metro sites. That's huge. We had JITO 2 expansion, and so now we added that resource to our Metro site and Memorial High. The mental health SEL grant that Tina wrote, community support via donations of needed items, increase in timely and relevant communication. We just released our first quarterly newsletter in efforts to not only help garnish the awareness and all of the great things that we're doing in our office, to our leadership at the district, but also our principals and high school counselors. Our website landing page is already updated and we are working on a brochure. We also have started and we've gotten the books, it's like in progress right now of ordering. We're working on getting some mini libraries in all of our metro sites and hopefully expanding that to our other sites as well. We definitely want to do whatever we need to do on our end to ensure that not only we're working towards the vision, mission, goals of our school district, but also the initiatives. And as we know, literacy is huge. And so we are also ensuring that our scholars have access to not only culturally relevant, but also relevant in different genres and of interest as well, so that they will enjoy reading. As I shared, these are the goals and the data that we are working on securing and ensuring that we're following through with our district strategic framework and goals. And we're also have implemented this year to ensure that we are on the right path, our pre and post assessments for not only our district programs, but also the ones that we partner with or we have contracts with. And in addition to that, with attendance, we are working diligently and not only ensuring that there's a plan, an attendance plan at every single one of the sites, but that we as an office are monitoring those attendance reports, and that we also have a plan in our office to ensure that we are supporting the students. We can't wait till the very end and say, well, he only came 3 times. Well, that's too late. We need to make sure that we know when the students are not there so that we can support. We have a counselor, we have a social worker, we have me. We need to make a phone call, we need to visit, we need to see why is it that the student maybe is not there. And we need to do whatever it takes and go above and beyond to ensure that the students are attending, that they're receiving the support that they need to be successful. Next steps, we are going to continue to evaluate the success of each program based on outline metrics. We're data-driven, research-driven, and we're going to use the above information and student voice to determine continuing of programs expansion and potential shifts. Like Allison mentioned about the night school, we're working right now. We had in the past had one at East and one at West, and each one of them had their own like protocols. And I've combined it and got the best out of both and made sure that we have one. And we've included student voice. We did a survey. We're still collecting input, and it's just very general. So we just like, hey, if we had a night school, what would be a good reason? What would, and students have responded that, they could do it in their own time. They could work in the morning and still take classes at night, et cetera. We're going to do it virtually starting in the spring. And in the past, it's been more about credit recovery. We're looking to have credit recovery as well as credit attainment for the students. So yeah, great things happening, and I'm really excited to be able to support all of our scholars. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Nancy Molfenter here. I am just going to introduce 2 of our transition programs for scholars with an IEP that I think are really unique and pretty phenomenal. The first one is Campus Connect. It's a partnership with Madison College and also the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Eric Hart, who is our coordinator of Campus Connect. And then after that, our coordinator of Project Search, Jason Pentakoff, will share a little bit of information about that program with you. It's a partnership that is with UW Hospital and the VA Hospital and also Adult Service Partners. So with that, I will turn over the next slide to Dr. Hartz.
Hello, members of the board and Dr. Jenkins. Thank you, Nancy, for listening to us about the Campus Connect program. Campus Connect is a fully inclusive dual enrollment program for scholars with a wide range of abilities and unique learning styles. All of our scholars have an IEP and are between the ages of 18 and 21 years old. We have a very strong partnership with Madison College and the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. Our program is centered around post-secondary goals for our scholars, and they can enroll in any Madison College program that they are interested in. We started in 2014 with 4 scholars and 1 full-time staff. Currently, we have between 40 and 45 students per year and 3 full-time staff. Both Michelle Manzo and Jessica Schultz are also on this meeting, and they are full-time teachers at Campus Connect. So I think it's important for the members of the board and Dr. Jenkins to understand that Campus Connect is a very unique program, and we are navigating a post-secondary system that was not built for our scholars. We are one of 45 dual enrollment programs in the United States. We were one of the first programs at a 2-year technical college. So we do have some data. We currently have 41 scholars in the program. We have a very diverse program. And 81% of our classes, of our students pass their classes with a C or better. Last spring, we had 45 college classes for credits that were completed by our students. 88% of our scholars exited with paid jobs. Our 5-year employment trend is 80% or more. And we've had to date 7 students that have went on to 4-year colleges or universities. This is a video from one of our previous scholars, Noah Clark. Noah is a SEA right now at Val Phillips Memorial High School. And Noah also announces for the Big Ten Network. So if you watch the Big Ten Network, you may see him announcing basketball, hockey, or football games. If you can play that would be great.
I'll just point to you. Hi, I'm Noah Clark, and I graduated in 2017 as a student from Bell Phillips Memorial High School. And one of the things I love about Campus Connect when I was here was they provided such great resources for me to be successful in and out of the classroom. You know, they provided me with tutoring, and they provided me with, you know, resources to help me with tutoring or going to the writing center. And it was a lot of help, and very, very helpful for me to be successful through college. And right now I want to go as, a journalism. I want to graduate in journalism or have an audio communications degree. And right now I work as a special education assistant at Bell Phillips Memorial High School, and as well as working for Big Ten Student U.
So it's common for our students to take a little bit longer to graduate with degrees. Sometimes it takes twice the amount of time. Noah is still on path to graduate, and he's currently still taking classes. That's the info about Campus Connect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you to Michelle and Jessica too.
Good evening. My name is Jason Pentecoff, and I am the coordinator for the Project Search program. I have been a teacher for over 18 years and 9 years in MMSD. I am also a parent of 2 kids who go to MMSD schools, a daughter who was in 8th grade at Cherokee and a son who was at 4th grade at Thoreau. Project Search is a nationwide program that is in almost all states and even internationally, whose mission is to prepare young people 18 to 21 with differing abilities for success in a competitive integrated employment. Project Search has been a transition program for MMSD since 2010. We were the first Project Search in Wisconsin and the first nationwide to be partnered with the VA hospital. Project Search works with host businesses, in our case, the VA and UW hospitals, to set up rotations for 11 to 12 interns, all who have IEPs, who are interested in working in a hospital environment, and participate in a transition program at their home high schools. Interns work in up to 4 rotations in each school year. These rotations are in a variety of job departments and teach the scholars how to develop a certain type of skills. These rotations can be in culinary, customer service, data entry, sanitizing medical equipment, stocking, pharmacy. The rotations are based purely on the interests and long-term goals of the interns. We work with the hospitals hand in hand in developing these rotations based on the hospitals and community needs. Project Search is a successful program because we are a true partnership and set up our scholars for success. We partner with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation and a vocational agency, Madison Area Rehabilitation Centers, or MARC, where we provide true wraparound services, meaning that the scholars from MMSD are taught through Project Search and supported by myself and job coaches from MARC. Once the scholars are hired, they graduate from MMSD and then are provided with continued support from their job coaches from MARC. This allows host businesses to feel supported and hire our scholars. And most importantly, it allows our scholars to feel like they can be successful in the future and in life. This is why the percentage of our scholars finding employment in the hospitals has been so high. Historically, the number of interns hired in the hospital or community setting is 91%. These students are hired at wages above minimum wage. The starting wages for students at the UW are $17 an hour, and at the VA, they are $15. Project Search strives to be a diverse community, as I believe that we can be an equity driving program. This year, the program is 37% Black, 27% Latino, and 37% white. Project Search is a successful, diverse, scholar-driven, and life-changing program, and I am incredibly lucky to be a part of it. I invite all of the board members and community to come to the hospital and come see the hard work that these scholars are putting in. If you go to the next slide, there is a brief video of 2 of our previous scholars who are now working. The first kid is working full-time at the UW hospital, and the other former scholar is working part-time at the VA hospital.
There's actually 3, I think, Jason.
No, I edited it.
Oh, well, never mind then.
End of the game. Audiology, down the hall, to the right, next lobby, green lights, registration.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you
Have a
very much.
great day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
He was at the children's hospital and gave us masks.
What is your job? Guest services. And what does that entail? It entails helping people, getting them where they need to go, greeting them with a smile, and I'm the first person they see.
So everyone who comes to the hospital, the first person they see is who?
Me and the rest of our team. MMSD and Project Search helped me find this job by giving me the tools to succeed, giving me the confidence I needed to succeed, but also being able to ask questions when they were needed. My lifelong goal is to stay full-time and to help this team grow and get stronger.
My responsibility is when I get here, I do the dishes, and then around like 9:30 or 10, I come down and work in the cafeteria and serve the hotline, and then afternoon, then I put up the juices and water stock.
So you're stocking things.
Yeah, stocking things. They help me out a lot by helping me out get a job and learn new things and help me out with my goals and stuff like that. Like, it's okay to ask questions, try to talk more, because I'm still kind of quiet, but I still talk a little bit more. But yeah, they did a lot, and it's a good place to come through. Personal goals is trying to live dependent, and then my professional goals is talk a little bit more and try to speak a little bit louder, a little bit more.
Jessica, you go to the next slide, please. So Sabian, we'll turn it back to you and open it up for discussion.
All right, I know there's a lot there, so feel free to ask as many questions as you need. So we'll start with Board Member Nichols.
Can you start with someone else?
Okay, Board Member Muldrow.
So I find a lot of what we just discussed to be really uplifting and really helpful. I do want to hone in on what I find disturbing. So I want to get us started there and we'll move into things that are great as we have the conversation. If you can go to slide 26, that Jesse is going to be the slide that says Metro sites rolling total enrollment 43. All right. So if you looked at this number,
I already looked at it.
okay. What it says is that 19 of the 26 children who were either in shelter home or the juvenile detention center were African American. That means that Black or African American students make up 73% of the students that were incarcerated as children in our community. That's overrepresentation to a pretty extreme extent. Our district is not 73% African American. Our district is barely 20% African American. Do you all want to talk to me a little bit about that data point and what we're doing to address that dynamic?
Well, as far as I know, I mean, these are children that we're serving, so they're getting, you know, they're having these, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're getting, you know, this consequence is coming from not necessarily from us, it's a community thing. Yeah, so what we try to do is what Tina was alluding to is when she got the grant is we're trying to address the social emotional trauma and ensuring that our team is equipped and empowered to realize that we definitely, that part of our job is to help the students not give up and help them see that none of us are the, you know, worst mistake that we've ever made, et cetera. So for me, it's more about how do we support them and helping them see that that our job is to help them either graduate or still have meaning in their life, even if they're there for a couple of years, especially like at the jails. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I'll let somebody else.
I'm not necessarily sure that answers my question either, right? Because whether this is a community issue or not, if we're the people who are aware of it, we're serving students, we're the people perceiving, right? Not everybody in our community gets to go into our Dane County Juvenile Detention Center. So if we're going in there, we're saying, hey, the majority of kids on any given day are going to be Black and African American. I think we're the people positioned to sound the alarm that that is not okay.
Yes.
Can I jump in here? Oh, yes.
No, go ahead.
So I think there's a few additional things outside of what happens once our students are in there that we are working on. So one, there's a cross-sector collaboration that's happening with our juvenile judges, with our county, with our city, and with our surrounding school districts to talk first and foremost about the over-policing that is happening with our young people, specifically our young people that identify as African American. So I think that's one thing, that this is definitely not just an MMSD issue. This is a regional issue that is happening while our young people are in our city. Secondarily, I think that we are continuing to think about what needs to happen within our schools while we have our students with us. Tina mentioned that a good percentage of these students come from across the entire country, right? But the students also come from MMSD, and the portion that comes from MMSD is the part that we're trying to also focus on in terms of disrupting some of these racist practices and inequities that are happening from the moment our babies walk through the door in kindergarten, right? In terms of what is happening to our students from from even 4K, as Colleen alluded to, and how we are trying to disrupt those practices while we have them, which hopefully in turn is a piece of disrupting what is happening in the city. But it is definitely something that is beyond MMSD that we, and I know President Mulder, you were with us last year when we had Chief Barnes with us to walk detention, to see who is ending up in our justice systems as well. So I would just add a few of those.
I will yield to some of the others who wanted to speak. I know Tina Geyer's been with us a long time, and I tell you, someone who's just amazing. I won't speak for you. She can speak for herself, some of the things she's doing, and then I'll talk on the larger. But I see Mr. Harvey too, who works with the secondary division. So I'll yield to you too. Tina, if you want to go ahead first.
Absolutely. There is no argument there, Board Member Muldrow. It is disproportionate across the board in all of the correctional settings statewide. I don't know what to say beyond. Yes, I think, Cindy, Ms. Green there has addressed that this is beyond MMSD. Yes, these are the students we have, and these are the students we are focusing our attention on, and we are doing our utmost to support while they're with us.
I very much appreciate you all leading into that. Ines, I'm glad to hear from you too. So I'm hoping you're going to get to the part of the question, which is what are we doing about this?
So to extend Cindy's response, yes, we do work with Judge Mitchell monthly on identifying what get there, but most importantly, we drill down to the schools to work proactively. How do we look at restorative justice before they get there? How do we create a sense of belonging where all our scholars can lean in and engage before these activities pull them there? So we're really looking at our restorative justice processes, and how do we really have a seamless transition in terms of meeting those behaviors with some expected outcomes. So it's a work in progress. We're not there yet, but we have identified that it is an opportunity for us to lean in to be very proactive in our engagement.
Yeah, and I just get to the question. First of all, I'm glad you brought that out, and you know that I knew that you were going to bring it up because you and I talk about this, and I looked at the data. It's part of the presentation, and I say, there it goes again. Let me say to everybody, 30-some years, been all over the country, consult everywhere. You can go in any community almost and pull the same data out. When I leaned in the early childhood, and I talked about the developmental appropriateness and of the relationship and how we begin to identify first time a child, particular child, I'm talking about this data point, a child within this data point, African-American, if you looked at it, 18 of them received special needs services. Okay, so how are we going to, at that level, have an exchange, a meaningful exchange, and begin to characterize it, plays up into the rest of it. It goes from prenatal care. We also go to, when we start talking about just the birth rate and what happens to our African-American women and family, kind of care that's taken care of there very early on. This is deep. This is just playing out as colonization has started, and it's real in our schools. So we have to work. You hear us talking about Judge Mitchell. I appreciate the relationship we have with Judge Mitchell and all the other judges, but this is real, and we have to have a conversation and push this out in the community. We're working to have many relationships and talk about how individuals are embraced in our district, in our community, in our state. There's clear evidence that talks about the state of Wisconsin and how Black families are treated. It's real. I would be one to tell you, it's real in our district, it's real in our community, it's real in our country. And we have to face this. So when we talk about early literacy and beyond, some say, why are you talking about early literacy? It's a direct correlation to the individuals who are sitting in prison, not of their intelligence, but how well that they have experienced this educational system in America, which help lead them to different outcomes than their peers. But if we can educate them earlier, if we can get our young people earlier, and you see the ones who have early success, there's also facts that they're treated differently once they learn the skills, but the moment they act out of line with the learning expectations, then they begin to be characterized in a certain way and over-identified as special ed. So there's a direct correlation. So we are working on that. We're talking about this and having real discussions. I appreciate you bringing up the question. We're not there. I think we have to continue to push. I want to say to everyone as well, I wouldn't speak without saying this. Fundamentally flawed how we support education funding. These make us make choices, and we have to make real decisions about how we're going to give the real support that's needed to try to do something to even let individuals know once you make a decision, that's not the end of your life. I appreciate everything Ms. Geyer, you and the team are doing to graduate our students. Sometimes they don't even graduate when they get over there. It's a difficult task because they've given up. Oh, but we got to play into everything at that level is dealing with social emotional trauma that you've experienced. So we're working on that, but we're not perfect. That is a great question, and I think that's one that should be pushed out in the community. And we should not let anyone sleep without understanding that there's nothing genetically speaking that's saying that we have to have this many children. And today, there are children behind bars in a place where they're taken out of where we should be having some real democracy. So thanks for the question.
So I'll say this about the way the question was just answered. There's nothing any of you said that made me think next year I'll look at that slide and it'll look any different than it looks right now. And I find that to be completely unacceptable. I find the fact that the children who are incarcerated most frequently in our community are Black to be something that none of us should be okay or comfortable, and something that we should be really committed to transform. I want to make a comment on gender identity that I saw come up a couple times. So the gender identity is really locked in the binary. It's, male and female. We have a great number and growing number of students who identify as trans and non-binary, and their erasure is really problematic and sends a very clear message to them that the folks who are around this table aren't aware of the need to recognize who they are and make sure that they have the ability to represent themselves fully. So that's something I'd really like us to work towards doing in the future when we're including a breakdown of gender. The other thing I want to speak to is I see a huge overrepresentation of special education students, and I don't see any representation of advanced learners. Anybody want to talk about the services that kids who are in Metro or kids who are in these programs who are advanced learners are getting? Or are these students, there's no advanced learners, there's no need to provide those services to this group of kids?
Well, I will say during our visits, we did find that there are some students there who may be advanced learners, but not identified. And that's the way the system is designed. Some of the children who have challenges in school and get labeled as what needed special needs service, those are the same children, same criteria that labels students as gifted. But once you experience in the system identifies you one way. We were in there last year this time, and we had students who needed more books. And so we connected back with the home sites to get them things at another level. And the students shared with us, student by student, that the work was too low for them. Even though they may have had an IEP, they felt as if though the work that was given to them is different. So that's something we started with last year. We connected back with principals, connected back with the teachers to get different work for them at the site. And I would just say that's a work in progress too, because once they get in there, I think expectations have gone down from what we think in terms of in our settings that we should be sensitive to. But I do think teachers over there for trying to move it forward. Ms. Geyer, I'm just going to sing your praises because I've seen you. I know you worked and I know you've been asking for years, and she's a long time over there. She didn't just get over there, and she's been a part of the stability of the program. So I appreciate that, but we have a lot of work to do from our end to be able to support our programs. And again, I appreciate you highlighting because nobody really wants to talk about this program, and that's a part of the problem.
So is the answer to the question, there are no advanced learner services being offered to this group of students?
So I'll piggyback off of what Dr. Jenkins said. I don't think we have any identified advanced learners in this group. However, what I think is really important, Dr. Jenkins alluded to it, and I would say we mentioned before, we have to ask students what their areas of interest are, which is how we got the partnership with the Bubbler, how we've done some writing projects, how we've done some other areas to tap into the students' creativity. But in terms of specific advanced learning services at this point in time, no.
Okay. I want to ask about students' opportunities to explore a second language, students' opportunities to explore learning outdoors, and students' opportunities to explore arts-based education. Second language, arts-based education, opportunities to be outside.
Specific to Metro or all of the innovative?
Specific to Metro.
So I'll just start and I'm going to turn it over to the team to talk about it. I don't believe there's a lot of opportunity for them to go outdoors outside of anything that may be organized through the county, but I don't think they're outside of shelter, they're able to go outside and shelter. But I'll turn it over to the team in terms of the other, we mentioned a few of the arts-based, but I'll let them talk about the other programming.
I definitely know about some of the things, but Tina can definitely share in more depth about the arts.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So our arts partnerships take place through the Library Bubbler Project, as well as through IMWE Global Village, visual arts, textile arts. It could be music, writing, the full gamut. We do not have, I'm assuming you mean foreign language instruction. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, no, we do not have foreign language instruction opportunities at this time. Third question, I apologize.
How often do students have the opportunity to go outside, Tina?
Based on the site, it would be different based on the site. So for shelter home, a lot of the instruction is community-based. The students are outside daily. At the jail, it's based off of security, and that's beyond my control. We're inside of a secure facility, as is detention. We are operating within their facility. We have to follow their rules and their structures.
So in the detention spaces, there's no opportunity to go outdoors. When you're in the Dane County Juvenile Detention Facility, you never leave that building.
You are inside.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing to that I think is important to note, not just in this space, but for our entire community, is that the staff that is at all 4 of our Metro sites is fully funded by MMSD solely. And yet we serve any student that ever enters into that space, and we wrap around them and they become an MMSD student. So that's one piece that I think is very important to note. The dollars we put towards it, yes, we do have title funds, but the dollars we put towards it are all secured by MMSD, because we believe the importance of the value of educating our young people and also trying to stop recidivism rates. Secondarily, we also are within the confines of the county and what we can control within the county in terms of justice involved site. And so I just wanted to put that into the space to name that for not just in here, but for everyone.
I greatly appreciate that. And Tina, I greatly appreciate the work that you do and you answering my question. I don't mean for my questions to disparage the work that I think folks are doing, but I do think many of us in this room, and I've talked to you enough, Tina, to know that you also have a problem with the overrepresentation of Black students, the overrepresentation of students with disabilities, and you know, some of the practices that students are exposed to while incarcerated. And I firmly believe that it's developmentally inappropriate to incarcerate children. And I think that this is something that does more harm than good on a very regular basis, and it's something we need to be honest about in order to change. So thank you all for answering those questions. I want to highlight the work that came after that slide. So Nancy, I want to thank you for bringing in the 2 programs in terms of Campus Connect and, sorry, I'm forgetting the other's name, Project Search. One of the things I thought was really nice to see reflected in that was how students are able to use those programs as a launching pad to their future and to their adult life and to their careers. I actually thought that was missing from other portions of our Opportunity Youth in terms of what percentage of our Metro students go on to college. We're missing that kind of info. I'm curious about how students become connected with Project Search and Campus Connect, and if there are early indicators that might be a good program for our students.
Sure. So, Eric, Eric and Jason, I can start if you want, and then you guys can jump in. Is that okay with both of you? Or do
Sure,
you
that's
want-
fine, Nancy.
Okay. So both Campus Connect and Project Search have an application process, but I will say, and so I will let Eric and Jason speak to those processes that, for each of their programs. But I will say that definitely as scholars move up, like through middle school and high school, we're always paying attention to what they're saying their hopes and dreams are. They have a post-secondary transition plan starting at age 14. And we try to train our IEP teams to listen for, like they're interested in healthcare, they're interested in working in a hospital, they may want to do office work and all of those things. They can be trained on those things through our Project Search program. They talk about wanting to go to college, but being concerned that they need support at college. And then, my radar goes up and then I try to tell scholars and families about both as early as possible when it seems like that might be a good match, because they want to be thinking about it and planning for it and prepping for it and learning more about it, maybe talking to people to think through it. So we definitely try to pay attention to that. So Jason, you want to share a little bit about the application process, and then you can turn it over to Eric.
That's a great question, and one that I would love to share. We basically start applications in January, but I do a lot of prepping. I work with the high schools because I really believe this is a huge program and opportunity for our MMSD students, scholars. So I've been working more and more with in the past, it's only been people who have been through the transition program. So our kids that have been 18 to 21 have heard about Project Search. And I feel like that's too late, right? Because a lot of the times there's students that don't even know this is an option, right? For themselves and in their future. And so I have been working with the high schools, the PSTs there, to try to talk to teachers at that point. And this year I have a lot more younger kids than I think I've ever had. And this kind of fits into some of the kids that wouldn't work with Campus Connect and weren't, they, weren't college material, but they weren't fully transition program type kids either. And so these are a lot of kids that, that went straight from high school to start working with us. And it's been really exciting to see their energy and excitement to when they come into Project Search. But it's an application process. I present it to the high schools through their PSTs and PLCs, and then they apply. Then we do an assessment day, which is basically like a job skills, kind of see where they're at on stuff. Can they count? Can they do money? Can they can they talk appropriately to, in a work setting. And then after that, our team makes decisions on who is a good fit. I would love to have 30 to 40 people apply every year. I have not had the numbers apply. And, I think last year I had 17 kids apply, and the year before that I had 12. And, that, we'd like to have those numbers doubled.
Thank you for talking me through that process. That's the end of my questions, unless.
Did you want to hear about the
Campus Connect wants to join for your app process?
Sure. Our application process is primarily by case manager referrals from all the Madison area high schools. That includes Capitol High and every program, Shabazz, all the programs. once we get the referral, what we're really looking for is the willingness and determination of the scholars who want to be in college. So what we don't look at is a previous attendance, previous behavior, disability category. We want to see where the students are going moving forward, not what they've done in the past. Some that helps us craft the program and support that they're going to need. But we're really focused on building self-determination and self-advocacy for those students. We primarily have between 20 and 25 students apply each year for Campus Connect. We can't always accept everyone, and sometimes it might not be the best fit for the students. So we do an interview with every student that applies to try to understand the students' goals a little bit better.
Thank you. I see Board Member Nichols with her hand up, but just briefly left the room. Board Member Sinkman, I saw that your hand was up. Do you still have questions?
Yes, I do. So I guess first I'll start by going to Metro. I have one question and then a comment. What are the youngest students that we're talking about that are at Metro? How old are they?
Tina, they're like as young as 14, right? At the detention.
No, they can be as young as 10 in the juvenile sites. We've had a couple of 11-year-olds this year. We haven't had any 10-year-olds, but yeah, it can begin at age 10 in the juvenile sites. We have had students as young as 15 in the adult sites.
Thank you. I needed that to help paint a little bit of the picture for me. When President Muldrow asked her question about what we're doing to stop this process, I think, you know, I appreciate that this is a wider community issue. However, what I would love to hear the district say as the first step is, let's look at implicit bias in early childhood education. Let's make sure that we are training our teachers, our staff, anybody who is coming in contact with our youngest students to recognize that that implicit bias includes looking at our youngest students of color as being older than they are. And that then leads to responses by those adults that end up putting those students in trouble and sets them down this path that doesn't seem to end. And so I'm hoping that we can start really retuning ourselves to think about, okay, this is where we're at by the time kids are in school. Let's look at where we start having control over that, which is now 4K. So I just wanted to put that out there and everybody's heads a little bit. Now I do have a question about Campus Connect. And that is when I'm listening to the program, it sounds wonderful. It also sounds like a duplicate of what our students could get if they were simply enrolling in our technical schools and identifying as a student with a disability and then using those disability services that are available. And so can you distinguish for us, what's the difference there? What are we offering that's beyond what the technical schools are offering?
Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you.
And I'm going to let Dr. Hartz, because he does it every day, along with our other teachers there, Jessica and Michelle, speak to that question about what students will receive from our teachers at Campus Connect over and above what they would get from our disability services on campus there. Because it's quite a bit.
Thank you. So first of all, we do follow some national benchmarks that were created from the University of Massachusetts. They have a organization called Think College, and they work with all colleges in the United States that provide additional support for students with, I say, abilities that are going to college. So that includes building self-determination skills, self-advocacy, campus membership, academic membership, and academic access. We provide a lot of external support for our students. That would include helping students communicate with instructors. We have an open door policy that they can come and access support at any time, Monday through Friday. That does not exist on campus. We work very closely with the disability resource specialists on campus, but we also work closely with the tutoring center and the writing center too. But what we really do is help students problem solve and navigate the post-secondary environment, an environment that was not really set up for a lot of our students. As an example, some of our scholars that have autism may struggle with some social skills or interacting or even asking a question or understanding to go to office hours for our instructors if they have questions on an assignment. So we do everything from that to helping the students register, to be more involved with campus events and activities, coordinating students to get together with other students on campus and their peers. So it's a lot of external support systems that we provide for our students that is a lot different and more intensive than what's available to them on campus.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for giving some more details.
Board Member Nichols, followed by Board Member Vandermolen.
Great, thank you. Are we still doing 3 questions?
Go ahead.
Okay. I want to switch gears just a little bit. My first couple of questions are budget related. Okay, so when I go through the budget book that we just approved, we actually had quite a bit of expansion in the Office of Youth Reengagement. There were ESSER funds added for you to add an alternative ed teacher, expanding the GIDO too, okay, to bring in psych services, to add a registrar, facility lease, and also to have a soft landing space for students re-entering. So the first question I have is, can you just give a short update on how efforts that are funded under ESSER are going? And then the second follow-up part to that is thinking about when ESSER ends and some of the robustness that you've been able to add into the program. Do you foresee what you might want to most sustain? And maybe you're not there yet, but I'm just curious. That's first budget related question.
What page?
That is on page 119. Do you want to just, I don't know if you want to look at the ones.
Yeah.
You don't have to give an update on every single.
Yeah. Name them, please.
Yeah. So with this, you wrote some of the proposals, so you might be able to share a little bit more in depth, but I know that we've had a challenging time securing the alt ed teachers, but we did expand in collaboration with Memorial High. And we were also able to expand into our metro site, and Tina has been spearheading that as well. So we didn't have to hire anyone for that. In terms of the building and the location, I believe that money was secured for Blue Lion, the Blue Lion one.
There's space rental for the soft landing space for when students are coming, transitioning out of detention and or one of the jails is what the space is for. And that is one of the things in process. As you know, we had a lot of transition of team members into new team members. So we actually just started a conversation about that. We think that is something that is critically important in terms of investment. I'm going to go back to the conversation that we started with Ali's questions in terms of thinking about how we transition our students once they leave one of our justice involved sites and how we wrap around them to ensure that they are set up for success as they are entering back into our community and back into our schools. What we learned the last 2 years is that it wasn't just kind of student needs, it was family needs. right? And so we learned that the families needed support in terms of potentially navigating transportation, in terms of navigating jobs for themselves. So we really intentionally, based on all of the data we collected, have put those dollars to want to create a space where we are supporting the entire family as they are transitioning out, and also to ensure that we have done our due diligence with our home high schools, for the schools obviously that we have control over, with our home high schools in terms of setting up those scholars for success.
Right.
The transitions back into our spaces have not always been welcoming, and I've said this before, we will transition a student that's coming from Monona Grove within 24 hours. But when it comes to thinking about transitioning our students that have been just as involved, we are not as welcoming, we are not as warm, and we are as not creating that sense of belonging. So that space, that's kind of what that space is, and that's work in progress.
So when you say work in progress, you mean like still trying to acquire a lease, work through the details?
Yeah, and I think staffing is a piece of it.
Okay.
I'll just name, Nuri just mentioned, I mean, we across the board, as you know, we still have positions that we're trying to staff for, right? We just secured a brand new social worker, which we're super excited about. We have a counselor, but Nuri also has been in her position for 90 days, maybe?
Yeah.
Right, so the transition to be able to have the staff, because you have to physically have one of our humans supporting not just the physical space, but actually the person that is helping with some of those transitions. So I'll pause there for that particular budget item.
No, I appreciate that. The other, sorry. Well, I was just gonna say that I was really excited by the soft landing part of and many of the other things that I'm sure you put in the ESSER plan. But the soft landing, I hope, is something that will come to fruition sooner than later, because I think it does address a real need that's been expressed over the years.
So the second part of your question, sustaining that.
Yes.
Culture, in which Ms. Green alluded to a culture change shift going back to the school. That's the last year we even started those conversations. The principals, for the counselors, our students need to make sure that they can transition
Mhm.
back into school.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
And I just will add that prior to me even, to be honest with you, because I'm a pretty direct, transparent person, getting like this, I'm not making an excuse, but I'm trying to learn and make sure that I use all the budget lines appropriately, and I want to be very aware that of the monies that we're using, we need to use them as they are written, et cetera. So even prior to me learning the full scope of those ESSER fund allocation, our juvenile justice specialist, Chauncey, has already written, and we are already adding it to our office handbook, because of the transition conversation and chatter that I started hearing when I got here. I was like, in order for this to be sustainable and for this to be a well-oiled machine per se, we need to have process and procedures for everything in this office. So we have created, and it's in the works, but I would say it's about 90% done, of every single role, every program, et cetera, into a handbook, so that if somebody leaves, we don't have to start over. Like, they know exactly this is what you do to, et cetera. So we're doing that. So, but Chauncey, back to that, he already wrote up a plan and he has started the implementation. So he's well on his way. And so we have a plan for when students come into our metro sites and when students leave. So he's the person, and we've told, and he knows, he's amazing. When they're coming back into the schools, if you cannot make it there that morning, you call me, you call the school counselor, the social worker, or even Allison. One of us needs to be there so that when they come into the building and the person says, they're human, so I don't want to be judgy, but roll your eyes, oh, they're back type of thing, like troublemaker, whatever they're thinking, we're there because we need to advocate for them. And if they say, have a seat, we know you were going to come, we're going to get your schedule. Okay, fine. We'll have a seat with a student. And we want to make sure. So one of the things that we're also working with our partners is to make sure, our community partners is to make sure that if the student, I know teenagers are kind of iffy about coats and stuff, but if they need a coat, we want to be able to give them a coat. We've already given lots of backpacks. We did a lot of supplies. So we want to be able to say, hey, listen, hey, you need a coat. All right, if you want a coat, we have a coat in the car. Here's a backpack. You know, this is some stuff that we have. Like, so we want to be able to be there for them, basically. So that is already started. And again, we just want to make sure that everything that we do is centered around the students and how we support them.
Right. Thank you for that. And I also know that there has been a lot of transition in this department. And I also hear, though, that some of the earlier work in the Office of Youth Reengagement, some of the feedback, some of the challenges, I think I hear you all speaking to, which is reassuring that even though staff have transitioned on, there are some things that you're doing and not having to reinvent the wheel, but really like taking the work forward and really trying to improve it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, Michelle, I would ask, go.
So, yeah, if I could just get to my second question. So my next question is also budgetary because I'm trying to bring my board hat. And there are quite a few consent memos that we approve that are in the programs of this department, right? And I've noticed there's such a cost differential on many of the programs and yet, not yet. And when I see your enrollment numbers, it makes me wonder a bit. So my question from a budget perspective is, has this department over the years ever thought about doing maybe some research or benchmarking what other alternative programs maybe in the state or around the country might look like relative to our local programming and the numbers of students? And I'm not saying that the dollars that we spend aren't worthwhile, because I'm a mom who had sons that went through many of the MMSD alternative programs. So I'm a firm believer in different pathways for students who need them. It's just the consent memos, there's a wide range.
Yeah, let me clarify that one piece and then I'll let Nuri obviously answer the rest. So almost every one of the programs is almost a very similar cost. It's the number of seats that we're purchasing. So they per student is approximately that $6,700 to $6,800 a year, which is what, with the exception of Omega School, is the only one that's different. Madison College, HSED, we have Gateway to College, we have Operation Fresh Start. They all are about the same amount in terms of seats. I think what you bring up is we have many dollars that go to programming. And when you talk about sustainability beyond ESSER, I think that is part of the decision-making we have to determine in terms of where our dollars are best used for which purposes, serving student interests and needs first and impact. But I know Nuri has definitely more she can add to it from their seat.
Yeah, so that is definitely one of the things that I'm very focused on. I want to be data-driven and research-based. And so in looking into even previous MOAs that we have signed, I was, there's always room for improvement in any setting. So not being, judgmental again, I'm just from an outside, I saw like 60%, kind of guaranteeing like 60% that the students will attend or will, graduate or have proficiency in this program, et cetera. And in my mind, 60% is not even a seat. So for me, it's like, if we're going to spend this kind of money, it needs to be aligned to the vision, aligned to the mission, aligned to the goals that the district has and the initiatives that we have in place. So I'm 100% in agreement with that. That's why we've implemented the pre and post assessments in each program, and we're a work in progress because sometimes change is hard for people. So we're bringing people along, and I'm not talking about my team. I'm talking about since we we are, collaborating with different entities. Some, and then the attendance as well, because we don't need to be paying for a seat and then the student is not there. So those kind of things is gonna make us more cost efficient, and we need to just be very consistent that we monitor that data, right? We just can't have like goals and set data and then we don't monitor. We need to make sure that we monitor it and we visit that data on a consistent basis.
Thank you. I know there's been a lot of work over the years with each of the organizations that we're partnering with and or, holding contracts with. So my comments are not intended to disparage the other entities. It's just more looking at the range of costs that we're spending. Okay, let's hone in on micro schools. Okay, we just had a board meeting. We had parent comment about Blue Line. And then we have Transition Academy. And I'm wondering if you could maybe give us an update. It's also in the presentation that Blue Line is paused right now. So could we get an update on kind of current thinking about Blue Line, and ultimately is the goal for the students in Blue Line and Transition Academy to go back to their kind of home high school? And if so, are there efforts in the transition?
So one of the prerequisites, or one of the requisites for Blue Lion is to have a CC teacher and a regular ed teacher. And if we were to look at the applications before I came here, 0. That's how many applicants I have on the queue right now. We just can't get a teacher. And so without it, we cannot proceed. We've done what we could. I've been bringing it up to different people, but we can't. So in the beginning of the school year, I did have a couple of people that applied, but I very quickly learned that on the handbook, it says that internal candidates cannot apply if your posting was done in a specific date. So then I couldn't even interview them. Actually, I did interview one, and then I learned that that's a big no-no. I can't hire that person. So I have 0 people, applicants on queue for that, and we can't go anywhere without the regular ed teacher. And so in regards to the transition back to homeschools, that decision was made before I even arrived at MMSD. And so there is a transition plan to help the high schools, East and West, kind of have, their students back and be under their wing. I have started the communication with the principals. We should have a timeline of transition, either end of December, beginning of January. And so we are hoping to have an easy transition where we can still support the students and the schools and have the programs back under their umbrella.
Mr. Harvey could support that too at that time.
Yeah, he's been included in all the communication, yes.
Yeah, thank you. My last question. And Cindy knows this better, Nuri, so I'll direct it more at Cindy. Every year we approve an at-risk plan. And
An on track to graduation plan.
yes, an on track to graduate plan.
Yes.
And when we approve the on track to graduate plan, as I recall, you come back and you share with us how people out in schools are working really, really hard to know who those students were and to help intervene in a way that they can come off that plan. Have we ever, to your knowledge, have we ever longitudinally kept track of students who may have been identified as not being on track in like 5th grade or 7th grade? But in that year, the intervention got them off the plan, but then we might see them again just a few short years later. Like, and I'm I'm not saying you're the answer to this, but like, I'm curious if we have any way of seeing students over time based on that, because I'm not saying that students who are in our alternative education programs, like there's something inherently wrong or they're at risk. But I am curious if we had earlier touch points with some of these same young folks, and then we somehow got them off the plan. But you know what I mean? But the issues weren't really ever sufficiently addressed. And so they kind of matriculate through and then end up in our high school settings, but we knew them. You know what I mean? So I don't know if we have any way to do that or not, because it seems like the On Track to Graduate plan is like an annual, like it's a year by year thing, but it doesn't necessarily follow the student through their MMSD career. Unless, yeah, so I guess the question is, have we ever, or do we have the capability to see our students more than just a school year at a time?
Yes.
Can we see them over time?
Yes, so I see Caroline put her video on also. The short answer is yes, and the second short answer is we have qualitative and quantitative data that what I would call our predictive data that we have seen over time that has very key indicators of our students. If we do not intervene and if we do not put in kind of the robust systems around like 9th grade on track and all of those as they're coming up into high school, very often have then become the students that wait until they turn 17 and their options to graduation are our programs. What I would say in the last few years is we're trying to undo a lot of that in order to create programs that are proactive and programs that are options for students in terms of students kind of fit and match, if you will, in terms of a student like Operation Fresh Start, for example, focuses on construction and conservation, right? And creates opportunities for hands-on job experiences. Fabulous opportunity for students if they're interested in construction and conservation. 98% of the time, our students are going there not because that is their area of interest, because that is their option to graduate.
Right.
And if we could create it in a more proactive way, the short answer to that is that, and I think Carolina is gone, but anyways, we can also do historical. Caroline, I don't know if you want to answer on the data piece in terms of the historical. Maybe not.
Yes, no, I do. Sorry, my video is not working very well. I know, sorry, excuse me. Yes, to answer your question, Board Member Nichols, we are every year we have an annual report or update to the board, which is coming up soon. And so we do report out the percentage of students who, you know, get off the list. And we do have the capability to follow students longitudinally. So if that is something that you're interested in, we actually had it on the docket to follow our initial cohort to see, you know, where they ended up based on initial identification. And then COVID came and sort of thwarted our efforts. But that is a possibility, just to answer your question.
The last piece I would say about that is if those that have been around, the original intent of personalized pathways was to create smaller learning communities and a different experience for students, because what we have heard even before we had this On Track to Graduation requirement from the state is that the comprehensive high school was not always the best fit for our students based on even their experiences in K-8, right? And then the second thing I would say is that as we think about what we started with investing in our earliest learners and our focus on early literacy and beyond, I mean, that is one of our strategies and our priorities to disrupt some of what we are still continuing to see in terms of our students kind of matriculating through the grades and being off track and then being on our identification list of maybe not quite on track for graduation, so.
Okay. Well, I think I'll just state this, 'cause it's already given. I think about the many families who are depending on us. And the fact that their student may be a 5th grader. And we know that there's a greater need for them to get help. And then they do whatever happens and they're off to 6th grade. And then it's conversation again in 8th grade. And then, you know, they do whatever they need to do and they're off to high school. And then we're talking about young folks who are now 17, 18. Yeah, so I don't know if that's a better way of looking at our data systems or, you know, I don't know what it is, but I just feel like it's too painful for families to wait until their students make it to high school and they're like, I've been telling y'all or y'all knew, you know what I mean? So, which isn't exactly the point of this update, so I need to reel it in, but
I would say we agree. We've had those conversations about being proactive with our students, even in my own office. And we literally are an office of reactive, you know, because we are like trying to support still after the situation is where you are saying it. So we even talk about what can we still do to be proactive and how do we support the school district as a whole and in being, you know, thinking outside the box and how do we implement practices to support the kids? Because I hear you, you know, I have 3 sons and yeah, it would be definitely heartbreaking to know that, especially, you know, we have lots of parents that are very, you know, vocal, which I advocate for that because I'm a very vocal mama myself, you know, so thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So Savian had to head out, so I'll be chairing the rest of the meeting. Nikki, go ahead.
I appreciate you saving the best for last. Always a good way to end a very important topic. Really appreciate that. What I think is important, one, I want to address Ali's comments first. There's no reason that the criminal justice system and the juvenile justice system needs to be said. I understand that it's a community problem, but I want to be a part of fixing that problem because that over-identification includes every single one of our students, especially Black, Brown, and disabled. And I've been in those jails for the past 16 years. And I've done that juvenile work, and I can tell you the number of gifted students who aren't getting their needs met is ginormous. I can tell you that the number of disabled students who are not getting their needs met is absolutely huge. My comments also are as follows on what we can provide and what services. One, I want to know what we are doing to provide job and mentoring services for our students when they get out of Metro. 2, I want to know what we are doing to increase the number of juveniles with disabilities in tech ed programs and in vocational programs. Not everyone wants to go to a 4-year college. Some do, some don't, and that needs to be expressed. Number 3, I adore Project Search. I absolutely do. However, I do wonder on what qualities somebody needs. And I understand that you're working with the public, but I just worry when we say, well, if they're able to be a good fit, what constitutes a good fit? Because I was one of those DVR kids who wasn't a good fit. I was told that I should accept $2 an hour in a sheltered workshop and be happy about it. And that was with a law degree. And if that can happen with me, I sure the heck wonder what's going to happen to someone who's Black and brown, because it's going to be worse. And my last point is just a very nice, very much of a question comment for
for Campus Connect. You have a wonderful program. I just wish you would expand it more. But very simply, one quibble. When you discuss individuals with autism, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Some of us talk, some of us don't.
So your first question in terms of supporting post-high school planning for our students in Metro. As a reminder, the board approved an investment in a full-time counselor and a full-time social worker just for the Office of Youth Reengagement. So I'll let Nuri and Allison and the team talk about a lot of the amazing things that we've been able to start for our students in the last few years with that investment.
Yeah, so I'll just start off by saying that our counselor and our social worker both are very present in the Metro sites as well. And counselor meets individually with each scholar to come up with a plan, to come up with a success plan. So Allison or Tina, you can go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I just really want to highlight that our counselor is very present in that space, our social worker very present in that space, and she's even risen concerns in the short time she is new this year of the need for a social worker at just our Metro space, because there is a huge need there. All of our scholars in our Metro sites need that advocate. So the work is being done, which is great. We try our best to create plans for each one of our students upon entry so that we are planning for the exit as they are entering. So a big part of that is that career counseling, is that social emotional support that our counselor and our social worker are able to provide.
And I would second that. Our counselor works very closely with our students. We have her in the jail weekly, if not more. All of our students, as a part of their graduation plan, have a transition plan built in, be it through GETO 2, be it through an IEP portfolio. And she has developed a checklist of college, career, and community readiness procedures that tie directly with what the students are working on in their portfolio plans. Oftentimes, those students are, as you said, Board Member Vandermeulen, are looking at technical trades. They're looking at, not the four-year college plan, completing the federal financial aid form. All of our students do. Applying to Madison College, if that's the direction they're going, they apply while they're with us. We make a lot of direct referrals to the Operation Fresh Start Build Academy for folks who already have their diplomas. And students complete their initial interview via Zoom. So we are drawing those connections. Urban League, almost all of our kids become members before they leave because that opens the door to a number of services and supports in the community post-release. We coordinate with Nehemiah. We work with the Operation Fresh Start Drive and Drive to Succeed programs. We are connecting the dots in every direction we can find. And it's all about that student, where they're going, what they want, what they need, and what they're great at.
I just want to add one thing really quick. I think it was accidentally stated that transition mostly occurs at 18 to 21. In Wisconsin, transition starts at 14 for academic and 16 for vocational.
Thank you, Nikki. It looks like
I had a question, or not a question. I just wanted to respond to Board Member Vandermeulen. Thank you very much, Nikki. I do appreciate those comments, and I think it's really important to understand that those are some of the very stereotypes and barriers that we try to address and break down at Campus Connect with our students in college, because we have some of the most gifted and talented students, and all of our students have. There is no characteristic that is the same for any of our students. So I appreciate that feedback, and especially since it's something we focus on so much at Madison College.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to talk briefly about Project Search's acceptance of students. There is no, it is something that is really important to me too. And we've accepted a lot of diverse disabilities that have been different than what has been in the past. So when you come, I'll show you that we have a variety of kids that most people would have thought would not have worked out in Project Search. And I will show you that they are doing things that they wouldn't have been expected. So I'm a big believer in that work and structure brings freedom. And so, you know, so you would see a lot of great kids doing things. Like Kevin is a perfect example. He was our first student ever to be in a wheelchair. And you know, that's not acceptable. That shouldn't have been, you know, that should have happened a long time ago. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that it's, you know, I see, you know, it's not just kids that can like say, you know, work in a public service or like a customer service thing. You know, there are kids that have skills that, you know, they have the desire to work, and, you know, it comes in all variety of forms.
And I can't wait to set up a time to actually see Project Search, because I haven't spent enough time there.
No, please, I'm honest, you would love it. So.
Yeah, thank you. Nikki, were there any other questions, or did that answer everything you needed?
That answered everything perfectly.
Okay, perfect. I'll just say a few things, just so that we can get to our next. Oh, you want to say something, Dr. Jenkins?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
On this, I just wanted to thank everybody who did present tonight, because you all are doing an amazing job, and I do mean that. You have some tough challenges, we know that, but I appreciate it. We all appreciate it, the work that you're doing, and we know that we have a lot more work to do. But I just wanted to say that before you leave out of here tonight. And we have some fine programs that we're building on. We're just coming out of the pandemic, but the way that you're leaning in is so much appreciated. I can't say it enough. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Jenkins. I would just say that I met Kevin when I took my kid to the UW hospital when he broke his arm. So it was really nice to see a young person there and kind of help direct where we were going. So I'm glad that he was connected to the program. So that's awesome. I don't want to reiterate what we've already kind of said, but I just want to kind of wrap it up into one kind of comment. I think we all understand here at this table of like the actual work that needs to be done, not only with us as a school district, but also within our community. And we can't be absolved as having a part of that just because something happens to young people outside of the schools. I think, you know, for me, when I'm hear Ali's comments and Michelle's comments and questions very specifically, is that sometimes, you know, we give the nice response, right? But really, for me, it's also making sure that we give the real response and saying, look, this is an issue and this is what we're actually going to do about it. And then making sure that we show that that is what we're going to do about it, because sometimes we may do things behind the scenes, but I always want to call on other people as well. Like, we can't do this work alone. As MMSD, we're funding this, right? We're putting the resources in to help support our students, but this is an effort that needs to be done with Dane County. This is an effort that needs to be done with the city. This is an effort that needs to be done at the state level, with all of our elected officials, all of the folks in our nonprofits, all of our, you know, community partners out there, and having a greater stake, because our young people will become citizens who are going to be part of our world and part of our community in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm thankful for you all have been putting on this, and thank you, Ali, for your questions, because I think that they're important, not just to ask us in this room, but also that the community sees that these are the things that we are thinking about. These are the things that we are trying to have a hand in and mobilize and actually try to solve, right? So I want to be appreciative to everyone here. That's just my little tidbit, because I don't need to reiterate all the questions, because I also had very similar questions. if there are no more comments or questions, I want to say thank you all, and we can move now to item 7.1, restraint and seclusion.
So,
And I think that's gonna be done with Sydney, yes?
and Dr. Wolfender, but we're 50% done.
Yeah.
2 more to go. Thank you, Tina, and thank you, Allison, also. It's true.
Yeah.
We had another meeting after it.
Oh, all right, we're gonna move through this quick, lots of topics. So I am gonna turn it over to Dr. Wolfender, and she is going to kick us off.
All right, so, oh yeah, that's right. I was gonna hit the buttons. I'll leave it alone. So, we did provide, a report for the Board of Education on our restraint and seclusion numbers for last year. And so we're just gonna talk about the definitions, we're gonna talk about the data, and then we're gonna summarize where we are with our nonviolent crisis intervention training for required staff, and then talk about some strategic priorities and next steps. So in terms of that approach, definitions and approach, and this is something that staff get in the trainings that they receive, that restraint is anything that restricts or immobilizes or reduces the ability of a scholar to move freely, torso, arms, legs, or head. And so we do, while we definitely don't want to see our restraint and seclusion numbers go up, we want accurate documentation so that we are aware of what's happening. And so then seclusion is involuntary confinement, and the importance there is that if there's a sensory room or scholars have a break written into their IEP or multiple breaks a day, that they can choose to do that. But if there's any involuntary confinement and the scholar is physically prevented from leaving that space, that's a seclusion. So those are the definitions for you. Something that is stressed as strongly as we possibly can during training for our staff is that restraint and or seclusion are only to be used if there's clear, present, and imminent risk to the physical safety of one or more people in that space, the scholar themselves or other people in the space. And that is it. And it should, neither of these reactions or action steps should ever be taken unless that's present. And why? I just think it's important to put in this space and to talk about it with our staff every opportunity we get, that restraint and seclusion constitute trauma for our scholars. Every single time any of our scholars experiences a seclusion or restraint or both, that is re-traumatizing those scholars. And we want to avoid these practices to the largest degree possible. And that's gonna, and this trauma in schools impacts learning and engagement in school for our scholars. The data are clear. So proactive and preventative strategies. So our nonviolent crisis intervention training includes a number of proactive and positive strategies that we train our staff on and refresh our staff on and ask them to use. And so one of them is to do some intentional summer planning, to not just train on why you won't use restraint and seclusion unless absolutely necessary, but also how to respond and react when our scholars are having a tough moment or day. And so we also then streamline our systems for documenting and monitoring training for staff so that we know that that's happening, and provide training for principals. And we also, in addition to this, are now working to provide training to our sub-SEAs, because we know that they're being put in a position where they may be with scholars who are having a challenging time. So our data, I'm going to quickly preface a couple of things with our data. We're comparing to the 2018-19 school year, probably for
obvious reasons to all of you that it was our last full school year in person until last year. I also want to preface this with saying that although we were back in person last year fully, we also had scholars and classrooms out due to COVID closures. We had scholars who, although they were able to return fully in person last fall, some chose not to do so because of COVID concerns. And so we know that our attendance rate because of those pieces was lower last year. And I think that we're going to have to work really hard this year to make sure that our numbers continue to go down. So just wanted to share that this 21-22 data are showing a clear decline, 65.8% decrease in the total number of incidents of seclusion and or restraint. And what we'd really like to see is the decreasing trend continue. And I have concerns that we're going to have to work extra hard to make sure that happens. We have a couple more pieces of data for you. And this is the total number of scholars. So the last slide showed incidents, and this is the total number of scholars. So unfortunately, scholars who are experiencing seclusion and restraint, it's not uncommon that happens multiple times for a particular scholar. But in terms of overall percent, we did have a 58.5% decrease in the number of scholars who experienced seclusion and restraint from 2018-19 to last year. So although we see these decreases, we do know that we had a 57% decrease in total, the number of Black scholars who experienced seclusion and restraint. However, the overrepresentation and disproportionality here are very clear. I know I talked about this in terms of our scholars with an IEP who are Black as well at our retreat, the board retreat. But although they're only, as you pointed out earlier, that about 19% of our scholars are Black, but 48% of our scholars who experience seclusion and restraint are Black. So they're more than 2 times. It's more than 2 times the rate of other scholars in terms of experiencing seclusion and restraint. Very disturbing numbers. And then for our scholars with an IEP, it's pretty extreme. 78.6% of scholars who experienced a seclusion or restraint last year had an IEP. And of those, about 38% were scholars who are Black, who also have an IEP. So we see that twice as likely. So we think about 19% of our scholars are Black, 38% with an IEP who experience
I think there was a mistake in the slide, because if I had looked at it, what I saw in the data, and maybe I read it wrong, was that 78% of the students involved with seclusion restraints were students with disabilities, and then 38%, or did I read it backwards?
So it's, no, you got it. That's exactly right, Nikki. That it's 78.6% of scholars who experience seclusion and restraint have an IEP, and 38% of those, but remember, our scholars who are Black only represent 19% of the total population. So therein lies the overrepresentation.
And the disabled make up 14%, right? How many of our disabled students have IEPs?
Nikki.
Can you save your question until we're done with the presentation?
Well, considering I wrote the seclusion and restraint laws, I just wanted them to be accurate.
I appreciate that. But let's allow them to finish, and then you can just bookmark what slide it is. You're the first up to speak anyway. Go ahead.
So now I'm going to turn over the presentation to Bree Wolf to talk about our nonviolent crisis intervention training.
Thank you, Nancy, Board of Education. I want to start out by just highlighting our nonviolent crisis intervention training. You know, our NVCI training is a scholar-centered, trauma-informed training designed to assist in de-escalating scholars who are in different stages of emotional and or behavioral escalation. For each stage of escalation, there are corresponding staff attitudes and approaches that are utilized to prevent further escalation and or to support an already escalated individual to de-escalate. What I like about this training is the content of this training emphasizes the proactive interventions and supports. And in addition, the portion of the training that trains us to use physical interventions as an option are taught only to be used as a last resort when the scholar presents a clear, present, imminent risk to self or others. So you'll see on the slide here the training components. So we have 2 series of trainings going on. We have initial trainings and then we have our recertification trainings. Our initial trainings are designed for staff who have not had prior NVCI experience or training, or their training has expired. And as you can see here, it is has 3 different components. It has the self-paced online modules, a facilitated learning portion, and then the physicals portion. For our recertification training, which staff need to complete every 2 years, we have, once again, the self-paced online modules, the synchronous facilitated learning, and then the in-person physical skills. Next slide, please. So these are the staff who are mandated for training by our Human Resources Department. And just to kind of highlight where we're at, we have currently 1,329 total staff who are mandated for training. Of those staff, 79% or 1,064 have currently active certification. And then the other 20% are staff mandated to complete initial training. And those are trainings that are happening on a weekly basis to make sure that we are getting our staff up to date. Next slide. So our strategic priorities and next steps. So as a department, next slide, please. We are in the beginning stages of planning our school-wide professional development around the verbal de-escalation and verbal interventions. This allows for a focus on the prevention of escalation and providing supports in how to de-escalate. Secondly, we are looking at how to provide training for our new staff on to best utilize EduClimber and Infinite Campus to assist in parent communication and documentation after seclusion and restraint, so we can make sure that our data is to fidelity. We are also currently utilizing EduClimber to identify restraint and seclusion intervention thresholds. This allows us to provide student-specific problem solving and coaching around those student-specific needs or systems. And then as we continue to train mandatory staff this year, we look to begin planning to train mandatory staff again next year in the 23-24 school year.
Now we are at the discussion part, Nikki. Did you bookmark what slide that was?
I bookmarked, I did not because I could not do that. I know it was on because my pen ran out of ink. I just wanted to say it was 14% of individual disabilities. 14% of our students have IEPs is what I wanted to clarify. My other few questions are as follows. On seclusion and restraint. Thank you. On scholarly, that's it. Whatever, that's it. My question is, our Black scholars with IEPs are 38%. Do we know our Native American scholars with IEPs? Or is that, and do we know of other, our gay, lesbian, bisexual? Because I think those data needs to often be used because sometimes they are not included. And Chairman Muldrow made me think about it and my possible bias for and leaving out trans individuals by always saying he and she. So I'm trying to be a little more inclusive on that. So I would like to have a breakdown of all of them. I'm thrilled that we're getting the training. I think it needs to be done more. I think it needs to be done in a manner that we need to make sure that people understand, and we're starting to, the threats of this issue because it kills kids. In California this year, 3 teachers were arrested and 1 charged with murder for using an inappropriate restraint and broke a girl's neck. These are unfortunately tragic situations that I don't think need to ever happen. My other question, which is related to it, is on our seclusion rooms. We're making sure that all doors are open, I know, but are we making sure that all the lights are on? Because oftentimes that isn't included. But that was something that was very important to the draft, not just the drafters, but the legislatures on this bill, was because sensory deprivation can actually do more trauma to students than less. And that's all my comments.
Yeah, absolutely. The lights, a scholar would never be secluded with lights off, so absolutely. And yes, and I really do appreciate you highlighting that disproportionality in terms of just overall scholars with an IEP. You are correct. Between 14 and 15% of our scholars at any point in time have an IEP, but clearly the majority of scholars who experience seclusion or restraint are scholars with an IEP. Mickey, you're muted.
May I ask one more? Just like I'm not okay with our jails treating our students inappropriately, I'm worried that we're not, why we don't have even more planning on how to reduce this. How can we create a system that's even more robust? I'd love to work with you, and I'd love to work with this board on how we can find a way so that Black, brown, and disabled students aren't the majority who are getting secluded and restrained in school. And I think that can be done. I think we need a moratorium on elementary seclusion and restraint. I really do. I hope we can do that in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but can't imagine anyone would disagree. It would be wonderful to see that number be 0. That would be the goal. That should be our goal. That should absolutely be our goal. 0 dollars.
That's my goal as well.
Thank you. So I saw Nichelle's hand first, and then I saw Ali's hand, and then Laura's hand. Go ahead, Nichelle.
Yeah, I was gonna thank you for the transparency with the data. And I appreciate seeing the racial identity breakdown. Although I don't like looking at the results, I appreciate the transparency of the data. And I don't know if you've already have sent something to us in the past that I just have not remembered, but is there also a breakdown of racial identity and grade level? Because I think what I'm curious about is, like, in a 4K or K-12 system, at what levels are we seeing perhaps the greatest number of seclusion and restraint? And
Yeah, so the report, so it wasn't represented on the slides, but the report has the breakdown by grade level, but it doesn't further break it down by racial identity. But the vast majority of our seclusions and restraints happen at the elementary school level. And we have had some conversations, Bree may want to chime in as well, that those scholars tend to be smaller. And we believe that adults then believe that they can restrain and get them to seclusion more easily. There are situations, there have been a couple this year where a scholar in elementary school runs out of the building and puts themselves in harm's way by running toward busy streets or into busy streets. And so those incidents of seclusion and restraint, in my opinion, have the most merit, but not that we ever want to see that happen. But if you're keeping a child from getting hit by a car, that's different than if you are, trying to keep them from getting to the snacks or, whatever that the case might be. But the majority are, when you look at that report that was sent, it's the majority are at the elementary school level.
Michelle, just to reference, it was the early October weekly update, so it was in the weekly update.
yeah, I remembered a weekly update. I just couldn't remember how recent it was.
Can I add to that too, Nancy? As part of our priority this year too, we did make a conscious effort to really prioritize the time and training to our elementary schools first, given the data, and looking specifically at our schools with our highest incident rates of seclusion and restraint to try to help kind of change the course of where that data is, looking for those individual schools and at that elementary level.
Okay. And then is that data that you're monitoring in EduClimber. And then by the end of the year, the other slides that you showed, those were by the end of the year, right? When we're seeing year by year comparisons. Okay.
Yes, but we are, we talked, so Bree and Greg, who are completing the nonviolent crisis intervention training and support schools and staff to know what to do rather than use restraint and seclusion. We're going to look at the quarterly data shortly. The first quarter just ended, and we're going to take a look at that by school, because as I mentioned at the beginning, if there are schools that are ticking up and tracking higher than last year, we really want to catch that now and do some retraining and have some conversations and provide professional learning and support to those schools. So rather than waiting a whole year, we don't want to wait till the end if one or more scholars at a school are being restrained and secluded.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll just conclude by saying I need to put more thought into this, but I'm wondering if there might be connections between behavior education plan at the elementary level and ways that staff may be responding. You don't have to comment. We
can come back to you if you want on that one.
No, I'm gonna need more time to think about that, but thank you.
Is that all your questions?
For now, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ollie?
I mean, I guess I want to say, I think we leaned into the idea that our incarceration data is a greater community issue. And that would be easier to do if our own internal data didn't say very explicitly, our Black students are the most likely students to get suspended. They're the most likely students to be restrained and secluded. They're the least likely students to be in advanced learner opportunities. Everything that we're doing seems like it feeds into the idea that our students of color, our Black students specifically, should be incarcerated or left out of the classroom and are exposed to trauma that is often associated with their identity. Their identity becomes a primary indicator. Being Black, disabled, living in poverty become indicators of whether or not you're going to be restrained and secluded, suspended, otherwise treated as a problem within our district. And so to have that data and then go, well, wait, when we get to incarceration, it's a community problem, I think gets us away from our own part that we're playing in the creation of this data. And so I'm curious to really explore why we think our Black students are the most likely students to be restrained and secluded. Our Black students with disabilities.
I just want to clarify one thing. When you asked that original question, I said it's both and it starts the moment our kids walk through our door. So, and that is not to say anything about the work that we have to do and must do and need to do, but it is definitely a both and I think the data.
It's true, but I think when we talk about the community part or the part that we have a hard time reconciling, we have to start to talk about the part that we're really responsible for, and take some ownership of these experiences as defining experiences for our students of color, particularly our Black students with disabilities. Can we talk a little bit about why we think our Black students are the most likely students to be so restrained and secluded, our Black students with disabilities?
Racism.
I don't disagree with that. So we're saying we think we have a discriminatory practice of restraining and secluding this group of students based on their identity. What are we doing to stop that? And I guess my question is, will we look at this data next year and it look really similar to this year? Are there things that you feel like we are empowered to do or ways in which this board can invest that would promote a different outcome?
I do think that
at schools that have village builders and at schools that have adults, more adults that our scholars can build relationships with and have safe places where they feel like they can go if the classroom is very stressful. It's a part of our proactive strategies. And I'm a tough person to ask because I just kind of want to go into our schools and just say, after Q1, this is your data. It needs to not look like this anymore. But I know that that's not enough, right? So I want to put the data in front of principals, other leaders in schools, and say that has to stop. We have to figure out other ways to help our scholars through their tough days. But I also know that we have to provide our educators with tools that they need as well and help them understand what this data means and help them really think about and reflect on that.
I deeply appreciate that answer. And I think in this space, there's something powerful about saying, hey, we have a long history of discriminating against specific groups of students, particularly Black children. And I think the message we send to these kids is not there's something wrong with us or you're being targeted. This message we're sending to these students is there's something wrong with you. And when we do this in front of an entire community, disproportionately to one group of kids, we send the message to the entire group of students that there's something wrong with this group of children and that it is okay to treat these kids differently and subject these kids to the harshest punishments available, as well as physical consequences within the classroom. And so I think in terms of resources, I appreciate you naming that staffing and support makes a difference. And I guess I hope that we can look kind of school by school and say, hey, these are the models that promote the best outcomes for our students or the least disparities in terms of outcomes. That's it for my questions.
Go ahead and then I can pick it up.
I think Chair Mojo, you're raising a great question that goes back to what it looks like in a detention center. And I think, we would be fooling ourselves and say that we can actually discuss this complexity of 1619 occurring and then 35 the first school and then Article 1, Section 2, the 3/5 clause, and then Brown versus the Board of Education never being realized. Green 6 condition, and all of that landed on us right here, and it's throughout America. And I think we're really fooling ourselves. I remember, Simca, you said implicit bias. You heard the opening response from Dr. Mofenta say racism. It's real. Expectations, low expectation. And we're going at it, and I think we have to go at it. You said, what can the board do? I think we have to look at it from a policy level. We have to look at it from a practice level. And we have to say, what are we going to do to stop this segregation that's continuing to perpetuate itself throughout here in our system? When I started my early comments, I talked about the relationship of the child when they first come to our school. What happened? That's the beginning of all of our outcomes. These things can be disruptive. In fact, I'm very inspired by what I see that's happening now with the staff and where we can go to. It's not about staffing in isolation. That's a very short coming thought that it's just that. What are they doing when we fully staff in the schools and what are the results? Where are they different in the country? That's what I'm asking. So I think I would love to dive deeper in this discussion, but I think it's one of those things that what Member Pearson said earlier, let's talk real. Then let's take real action because we have some things coming before us right now. And I said it at the budget thing, I was mixed emotion because I was excited about the things we have accomplished together. But fundamentally, I know that we're fundamentally flawed on the federal and state level in terms of how we try to resource education. I think we have an opportunity, right? Very unique opportunity, because I think the way we're working right now, some of our staff, their teachers or administrators, I think it's a group that really wants to move forward. But there's data, we need to pull it out and say it is what it is. And what are we going to do about it? That becomes the question. Because no, you won't see anything different next year if we can't move in and do what we need to do. And I think it's some people on our staff, I'll say even a critical mass, who want to do something about it. There's a critical mass in this community. And then there are some so-called progressives who just playing games. And that's the truth of the fact. Now, I'm gonna say if we want to do something about it, it's easy to identify, it really is. It's really easy to identify. And I think we just have to hold that expectation of ourselves, of the board, of the superintendent, of the staff, and we can move it. There's no reason in Madison, Wisconsin, why we cannot disrupt what's going on. It really becomes a matter of will and collaboration. And if we collaborate, as we collaborate, I'm telling you, we have some smart people, we have some great staff. Some of the people you saw tonight was just a chip off the old block. It's a lot of great staff here to do this work. So I'm with you. I'm saying let's do this. You know what I mean? It's time to stop playing. All these years, no results. Children not reading, children getting restrained left and right. And you can use that made up thing all day long. Everyone caring about race. Race is not even real. You all know that's an economic driver. You know? So the little children in preschool drive what's going to happen in the prison. And that's an economic engine. You don't believe it? Check your stock. You know, so that's where we got to go real. All of it is racism. And I don't believe everybody out there is racist. And I believe you can talk about race and not be racist. When something's racist, you got to call it racist. And we have some acts that are racist. So that's where I'm coming from.
Polly, do you have any follow-up questions?
I already said I was done with my questions.
Laura?
Two questions. So.
Yeah, question.
I'll let you finish conferring. The first is, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but are we seeing examples of schools or individual teachers that are masterfully using nonviolent crisis intervention only? And if so, how are we using that as a strength to spread those techniques to folks who are struggling?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. So just about a week ago, in student services, we sat down with our program support teachers who are our special education leaders in buildings, and we taught them how to pull their own data. So one of our SMART goals in student services is to reduce across the board the percent of scholars with an IEP who are restrained and secluded, and then secondarily to reduce the percent of scholars with an IEP who identify as Black who are restrained or secluded. And so we asked by school for those leaders to look at their data. And we do have some elementary schools that did not have any restraints or seclusions last year at all. And so we will definitely be making those connections. I really appreciate that, the question and the idea, because we definitely want to do that, to talk about how, you know, and I'm just, one of them sticks out in my head because it surprised me in a positive way. Alice Elementary didn't have any. So when they pulled their data, you know, they were looking at that, and other elementary schools around them were looking at their data that looked very different. So we started the conversation, and now we have more work to do to strengthen the connections. But we're really stressing with our 120-day plans and SMART goals across the district that the needle doesn't move across the district unless schools move their needles, and we identify where, and it's, you know, this is restraint and seclusion is one example, but if we identify schools that have the higher numbers and really work more intentionally with them and connect them with locations where the scholars are the same, the practices are different, and talking about it from that viewpoint.
Yeah, one thing, context matters, really does. Similar demographics, different leaders, different staff. and how one's been trained, how one hasn't been trained, you get different results. And I think the leader at Alice, when you look at it in terms of bought in and how that staff to trying to lead in the work, I think context matters. Someone else, another man may think that's in their estimation. It may be lax, how someone's responding to something. Something Dr. Mopenta, Ms. Wiley has done, the anti-racist IEPs, how they're going in with lens, looking at it. It's not perfect. I've been in a lot of places and to see someone say anti-racist IEPs, whoa, just from that, it makes everybody pause and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? It hasn't stopped our overrepresentation yet, but I think this is the beginning of a good conversation. We've had some challenges in Madison for years, and I think we're at a point where, comfortable point where we're getting to identify some things and we can move it forward. Just staying together and collaborating and get there. I don't know if you want to mention about the IEPs. I don't know if I did justice for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we looked at data from a number of standpoints over the last 3 years. And now we're working to develop a plan to apply anti-racist practices to the evaluation process, because I couldn't agree more with Dr. Jenkins that when we're identifying scholars at a young age as needing special education services, Black scholars, as disproportionately as we are, we're sending a message to those scholars, and that needs to stop as well. So as I said at the retreat, so building on the process that we've developed for IEPs, we're going to be applying similar types of processes to our evaluation, and we've already, myself, Ms. Wiley, the assistant directors, have basically really worked hard to slow down. I heard the question, Board Member Vandermeulen, about our 4K scholars. We've really worked hard just in this first couple months of school to slow down referrals for special education services. If you're a 4K scholar, and of course, when we look at referrals that are made for our 4K scholars, the majority are for scholars who are Black and brown scholars. And so we're slowing it down. We're like, nope, we're gonna stop and provide interventions. Colleen talked about the triangle. We're not going there. We're gonna stop going there so quickly. We have to.
And that's just a tool, adding context. You're dealing with the training, conditioning of individuals up against a tool, and it's a process, it's a culture. And we have to be real about that. These things don't happen, but you can snap your fingers, real quick. It's a process. And I do see evidence that there are some things moving that really make you proud. When you hear some of these conversations, someplace you don't hear them like this, with everybody sitting at the table.
Yeah, I'm appreciating this conversation too, and I'm appreciating the change in numbers. It's still not zero, which I agree should be the goal. But I want to ask my second question about the individuals who are being secluded or restrained. And so when I look at these numbers, it looks like it's about an average of 3.25 incidents per student. However, I'm wondering if you look at the range rather than the average. Do we have students that this is going on 15, 20, 30 times? And if so, what steps are we taking to interrupt that?
Yes, I would say, and Bree, feel free after I comment to also respond. That 3.2 is not the average, that it tends to be either a higher number or just once or twice across a year. That it tends to be the pattern. So you're absolutely right. There are some scholars who experience a much higher rate of seclusion and restraint than we want to see. And I think that's why this year, and quite honestly, I wish I had thought of it last year. I didn't, but we're going to look at the first quarter data
and determine which schools have higher rates. And disaggregate that data for those schools and then go in and do some additional training connections, figure out what we can do differently, talk about, you know, one of the things that we say in training is that property destruction is better than restraining and secluding a kid. And I think we often have staff members trying to intervene, you know, to keep, you know, a chair from being destroyed or something like that. And that it's that, so I think we recognize that we have to figure out what practices are happening in those schools if the numbers are higher, and we have to do it at this point in the year and not wait. So that's my thinking on that. Go ahead, Bree.
Yeah, I was going to say, in addition, something that we're focusing on this year too is using EduClimber to provide thresholds so that when we have scholars that have hit a second incident, we're notified for every incident, but from that second, it gives us pause to look at those individual scholars and reach out about systems in schools and how we can help support those individual scholars so that we don't have scholars that are hitting, you know, excessive points of restraint and seclusion, because we want to get to what is their behavior communicating and how can we meet their needs through that communication in other ways.
Thank you. And it's also required by law that for a scholar with an IEP after the second incident that the staff have to be kind of debriefed and have a reflection, but there also has to be an IEP team meeting to talk about what's the function, what is the scholar communicating, what positive behavior supports can we put in place that aren't already in place to prevent any further incidents.
And to give a context to our students been out of school, and we've been talking about this with the social suits. You're seeing behaviors at 4th and 5th grade. Okay, that's different than the behaviors K-12 choices students are making and how we're able to identify who's been in school, who hasn't been in school. So you start talking about regulation. 4th and 5th graders, for the most part, they're doing really well. We have some though, who are still making an adjustment. They've been out of school. I'm so proud of some of the staff. So I was actually sat down with some of them and they're talking about this and they're looking for ways they can support this student. We have a lot of staff. That's what I want to highlight. We have a lot of staff trying right now. And at the middle school, Black Hawk, I was there, staff, they're talking about students. We still have some social isolation taking place in our schools today with a few of our students. But overwhelmingly, a number of them excited to be back in school, staff excited to have them. But we're trying to figure out what's this other thing between kindergarten, really first to like 3rd grade. They're excited to be there, but you remember they were in virtual almost 30 months. And so some of them are just a little different depending upon the resources that they had, perhaps even during pandemic when we were virtual. I think we were forgetting some students did not have an adult there. They had an older sibling. I'm in kindergarten and I got a sibling in 4th grade watching. So they're still trying to figure this stuff out. And some staff are really understanding it and working with them. And then some of us want to get back to the way it was. Wasn't even good for everybody the way it was. But so we're taking more time out now. Friday, we're going out, we're starting our instructional tours. But we, the ones who are supervising the schools, are looking and working with people. We're trying to calibrate our eyes to make sure we don't do more harm. If we rush back with the old way we've done it, we're going to get the same results. 70% of schools did not work for our students prior to the pandemic. And now we have students coming back and they still have some situations that we've got to work through. It's not on the kid, it's on us. And so I'm kind of excited about it right now. And I know I'm speaking a little bit more about that given context, but that's the context which we are driving into this year. How do we make the connections with our staff? How do they make it with the students? How do we change the trajectory?
Where did you get your questions answered?
I did, thank you.
Thank you all. Nisha?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate the level of thoughtfulness about looking at the data and then not just doing kind of like a district office, stop doing that. We want the numbers to go down because that hasn't worked. Our district has had some examples of that in the past. I'm not saying by you, I'm just saying in the past, right, where central office got very, like, was the intervener. And before you could do this, or before you could do that, in response to a student, you needed to, you know. So what I appreciate is that I am hearing, like, looking at a threshold of students who are experiencing a higher number of times, and then thinking about what that student needs, using your data to go out and maybe partner with the folks at the school and really think about, like, what do we need to do here differently. And that's, yeah, I think that sounds like a good path forward. And I'll be curious as the year continues and we talk again about this probably next year. If we're learning anything also about the effectiveness of the training. Because when I look at self-paced modules, facilitated learning, and then maybe a special portion of the training that's on the physical skills, and then you put staff folks, you know, in real time, day to day, right? Like, I think I also hold a question on, like, what are we learning about, like, what adults really need to take in the learning, to apply the learning, and whether or not whether we're getting what we need out of the training to really help folks deal with those in the moment issues.
Yeah, and I would say that we've had staff come to us and say that, like, hey, I know I had the training a few months ago, but then suddenly I was in a situation where I thought somebody might be at imminent risk and I couldn't remember and I will say that, you know, Bree and Greg and Dr. Esser work to consult with people and answer their questions and even go out and help people if they want direct modeling of, you know, how to, if there's a scholar that's really struggling and maybe staff say, hey, we almost restrained this kid before we do that, we really want some more help, and they go out and model. And we also have intensive support team members who do that. And we can't, you know, we're not getting everywhere all the time, but definitely in situations where staff reach out, their support available to them.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate that, because staff say exactly what you said. They're like, I can't remember what I learned 5 months ago when suddenly
That's
I
it.
feel like somebody might be in danger. Yeah.
I mean, I think any training it's not just specific to this one. Whether it be restorative practices, like any of the things that require you to be proactive and calm in mind, and you have to have the ability to do your own self-regulation before you react, and being able to, like, learn how to pause before you react. That takes a lot of practice, and it also takes oftentimes a set of conditions that aren't present, right? And so, like, trying to apply that in the moment it's a hard thing to do. So it may be something, as you all continue to work through this, to really think about, are there some additional pieces of professional learning and support that should be built into something like this to really bolster folks' direct application and learning?
Something that we're learning, you just described our learning. It's not even about the teacher in the classroom, the principal. Central office can't be, hey, this is what you're gonna do. We're working collaboratively to create a culture of inquiry, teaching ourselves, first of all, to pause. Because this is happening, don't go there and make a judgment. Let's get into asking the scientific question to get the individuals to reflect on their practice. That's better than us walking in and observing one situation and trying to direct someone. That's the old model. That's top down, you're not gonna get anywhere. But we're coming in as peers. We're hoping that, I'm not the only one out in the schools. Our team, we're out in the schools observing, so we can get in this mode. We're gonna calibrate on our lens, calibrate on how we're asking questions to get people more to reflect. We're to calm down for a second Let them know we trust them so that they can move into and making the connection. We can't ask staff to make connections if we don't make connections. That's not right. So it's gonna look a little different. If everybody can just be patient with us as we're going in, but it's not gonna happen overnight. That's what I would just say. It's just not an overnight sensation. You gotta build trust, you gotta build relationships, and that's what we're trying to do.
Good. Okay. I did have some questions and comments. I'll probably just email them because they are pretty detailed, but one thing I will say is that one thing I didn't hear is that, you know, having folks who I'll think about how to frame that. And I'll email it. But the other part is just how are we making sure that we're addressing once the students or scholars who do experience this, like what are we doing to ensure that we're addressing it? I know that you said that there are some we have, you know, our counselors and such that are in place. But again, we also know that counselors are split time at different schools. And then, you know, what is accountability not only on, you know, the family, because I feel like a lot of times when these do happen, in my own personal experience, is that the accountability is instantly onto the parents and the child, and not so much on the adult who would have caused that harm. As a parent, trying to have that adult have some accountability in this, a lot of times the accountability is somewhat, you know, we'll do more training. It goes to what Michelle just mentioned about, you know, we'll do more training, we'll do this, but how effective does that ensure that then my child or another child won't experience this again? And so you want to start, if you want to answer it, but yeah, you can answer it. Otherwise, I'll just like have my other questions a little more detailed in the email form.
Yeah, let me just say this, because we're not anywhere near the program. But we sit down every Friday with our MTI members, and we're talking about what's happening in all the buildings, and we talk about the building reps, the principals, the staff. And I give credit, and I'm just gonna say it. Hey, Mike Jones, I give him credit. We want to be restored. We want to do what's right. The MTI, they're coming to us. We have the joint partnership. Right now, we're looking at in terms of, you know, it is what it is. We say we want to be anti-racist. We can't do it alone. No one. Everyone has to come to the table. So our team is sitting, and we're talking about how we work with the principals and the building reps to make sure things are happening in the schools. We had things last year. Schools around, you're gonna have to. How do we approach it now with everyone in it? If you're doing restorative, you have to want to do restorative. If someone wants to do it, then we want to try to create this space. We're not perfect with restorative yet. We're still trying to understand restorative. I know everyone throws that out, but we're really trying to say, if you harm somebody, how do we make sure the child, the adult, parents, how do we get in this space? So please send us the email. That at the head of our meeting, we'll talk about this too. And I want us to come back and give you a response. It's not just to you all, it's the board. We talk about it to the community. I continue to hear people say they've been harmed.
Oh yeah, I mean, my personal experience isn't just my own.
No, not
experience
true.
with my children, but it's also what I'm hearing. It's about what I've seen, you know, like even as a child in MMSD. And this is something that we've been dealing with, not just only in these 4 years or 5 years that are placed here in the slides, but you know, this has been an ongoing thing in MMSD, in Madison and such. And so, you know, I'm thankful for the work that you all have been doing to really recognize and acknowledge that these are the things, these are the players that are happening in our city, in our district. And, trying to address it in a more proactive way without using buzzwords. You guys know how I hate buzzwords, but really wanting to do the work and really ensuring that it gets done. So I'll send my message and I'll wait for my response. But I know it's time check. We are at 8:39. Does any other board members have any other comments on this section or this portion of the presentation? Okay, it looks like we're good. Moving on. We are now at 8.1. Thank you. The update on middle school biliteracy, RFP and timeline. We are almost there to the finish line. Take it away.
Thank you, Bree. Thank you, Board Member Pearson. Thank you, Bree, and thank you, Dr. Molfenter, so much for that presentation. And we are coming to the finish line. I am going to invite Kaylee Jackson and Dr. Hicks on the screen just to provide a quick update. But before they join, I just wanted to remind the board that what we are going to be sharing here is just a quick update around where we are with the review of new biliteracy materials for our middle schools, and how this work directly connects to the science of reading and to our priority around early literacy and beyond, and how we are trying to take advantage of these one-time funds to make this large purchase, because we believe that this is a great use of kind of these ESSER dollars and a one-time purchase to be able to protect some of our local dollars for other things while we take advantage of this one-time purchase. So I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee Jackson, and she's just going to give you a quick update of where we are in the process and what you will see over the next few months. So you go to the next slide. And Kaylee, are you there?
I am.
Perfect. Thought you were
Wonderful. No, I'm back. I'm back, everyone. Well, good evening. I'm super excited to be able to share with you all where we are with the 6-8 biliteracy materials adoption. So as you all know, we have been meeting with our evaluation committee for the past 4 or 5 weeks now. And we have had a really wonderful group, super engaged, super diverse group looking at the materials that our 6 proposed vendors have put forth. We actually just finished our time with our evaluation committee members tonight. They wrapped up about 42 minutes ago, and we finished with their group presentations to the rest of the group. At this time, what we're working on now is we are working on our student, staff, and community input sessions. So that's what will be occurring over the next 3 weeks. And then from there, we will be meeting with our selection committee. So again, our selection committee is a smaller group of folks that comes directly from our evaluation committee. And what they'll be working to do is take all of the input that we have from the eval committee, from our staff, students, and from our community to make recommendations then to go to Dr. Jenkins and the board. We will continue to update you all on this process via our weekly board updates, and we will also be back to the board in February for a full finding of our materials adoption process, and then in March again for a vote. I will pause there to see if Dr. Hicks or Dr. Evie have anything to add to the process.
No, I have nothing to add. Kaylee, you did a wonderful job in sharing the update of information of where we began and where we currently are at this time.
Okay, Jessica, can you go to the next slide, please? So I'll just pause to see if there's any questions about where we are. Maya, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions about where we are about the literacy? Okay, let me look on the Zoom. I think we're all tired out. Okay, no questions on Zoom. Okay. guess no questions.
So thank you very much. That is the end of our presentations.
Okay.
And I'll turn it back over.
Thank you. So a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Got it. So moved by Ali, seconds by Nikki, pretty much. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Cindy.